Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Deku wasn't the hero anymore part 1. If you guys enjoy this what if and want to see part 2, comment down below and let me know before I start. Please do support for more awesome content and leave a like. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel and also share this video with your friends and check out the description in my playlist. The author of the story 𝗳𝗏𝗃_𝐭𝐢𝐳 from 𝗲𝗏. So let's start the video. Izuku hummed in thought. What exactly does your quirk copy? Is it just their appearance? Or can you do quirks too? Or their voice? Not quirks, but yes, their voice copies. I can do their clothes too. But then my own clothes are layered on top of them. So I gotta get naked first. The image that brought up made Izuku blush, but he forced the thoughts from his head. Instead, he focused on the many ideas that were already running through his brain. He'd grabbed his notebook without realizing it, and was already flipping to a new page before he realized he didn't have a pencil. That was fine though. This notebook was practically destroyed anyways, and he wanted to do Toga's analysis in a new notebook. One that wasn't ruined by Kacchan and marked by 𝗓𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗏. Hello, Izuku? Yeah there? Izuku blinked, eyes following the hand waving in front of his face. That was the fourth time that Toga had gotten Izuku out of his head. He fought off a frustrated and embarrassed sigh. Toga frowned. You got a little lost there, huh? Your face was all frowny, like when you saw 𝗓𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗏. Yay, sorry. Izuku closed his notebook with a scowl. I'm fine. You sure about that? Toga asked, tilting her head to the side. Izuku opened his mouth to reply, to say that yes, he's fine, everything's okay, nothing's wrong. He stopped himself before the words came out. No point in lying. No, I'm not, Izuku sighed. I've had a really shitty day, a really shitty life, actually, and I'm just tired. Do you want to talk about it? He considered saying no, considered dealing with it on his own, but she offered. And Izuku really did want to talk about it. Ever since I was little, I've wanted to be a hero. Being quirkless never changed that. Unsurprisingly, this didn't go over well with my peers. Because how could a useless, worthless, quirkless Deku like me ever be a hero? He paused to rub away the tears beginning to gather, then continued quietly. As you can probably guess, everyone bullied me. He'd never used the term bully before, even though he knew that's what was going on. Still, I never gave up. Kept notes on heroes and quirks and strategies to use in the hopes it would help eventually. The bullying got worse as time went on. Today was the first time someone told me to kill myself. Toga sucked in a sharp breath and grabbed onto his hand. The warmth was comforting. Was it? She bit her lip. Was it the boy from earlier? Izuku nodded. Kacchan. We used to be best friends. Well, not anymore, obviously. I'm your best friend now. Her declaration drew a small smile from Izuku. Yeah. So, what else happened? 'Cause you were looking at 𝗓𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗏 like he had killed your puppy or something. He killed something, alright, but it wasn't a puppy. Toga stepped closer. Their shoulders were touching now. I was walking home. There was a villain, the slime one, same one that attacked Kacchan. 𝗓𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗏 saved me. I asked him if I could be a hero without a quirk. Izuku broke off, choking on his words. Toga squeezed his hand. He said no. She finished for him. Izuku nodded. Well, screw him then. If he doesn't think you can do it, then he's no better than your bullies. Instinctively, Izuku opened his mouth to defend the #1 hero, but found that he couldn't find anything to say. Sure, maybe 𝗓𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗏 was a hero, Izuku's lifelong idol, the symbol of peace, and yeah, he'd at least tried to be gentle when crushing Izuku's dreams. But he was also a liar. Izuku had seen countless videos of 𝗓𝗏𝗏𝗏 proclaiming that anyone could become a hero no matter their quirk. Yet when Izuku had asked him that very question, he replied with the exact opposite. Had told him to pursue something more realistic. And then, once Izuku was thoroughly broken and utterly devoid of any ambition he had left, 𝗓𝗏𝗏𝗏 left him on a roof. A fucking roof. Right after Kacchan had told him to take a swan dive off of one. I think I have an answer. He saw Toga raise an eyebrow. An answer to what? The question you asked earlier. If I liked 𝗓𝗏𝗏𝗏, he scowled. I don't. Toga's face lit up. Great, because neither do I. Actually, I don't really like heroes in general. Izuku's eyebrows raised. You don't? And then nope, she said, popping the pea. They're all fake, doing it all for the fame and money. Not helping people who really need it. You're certainly right about that, Izuku snorted. The rain had stopped. Izuku sighed. I should probably get home. My mom will be getting worried. Already? Toga pouted. But we only just met. Here, hang on a sec. Izuku ripped out a blank page of his notebook, scribbled his phone number down, and handed it to Toga. You have a phone, right? Of course, she giggled. I'll text you later, Kay? Okay, Izuku beamed, waving at her as he raced away. Bye, 𝗵𝗃𝗧𝗵𝗃. He didn't see her surprised blush at the nickname. When Izuku got home, his mother was understandably worried, but he'd texted her ahead of time, so she knew the reason he was home so late. Or at least part of it. Izuku omitted a few details. When she finished fussing over him, he headed to his room to work on homework. He'd finished everything at school and flopped down on the bed, pulling out his phone. He smiled when he saw that 𝗵𝗃𝗧𝗵𝗃 had already sent him a message. Toga Himiko. Izucha and Midoriya Izuku. 𝗵𝗃𝗧𝗵𝗃. Toga Himiko's name has been changed to 𝗵𝗃𝗧. Midoriya Izuku's name has been changed to Izuchan 𝗵𝗃𝗧𝗵𝗃. So, since we're friends, we should get to know each other better. Izuchan. Okay, well, what do you want to know? 𝗵𝗃𝗧𝗵𝗃. 𝗵𝗃𝗧𝗵𝗃. What's her favorite color? Izuchan. Izuchan. Yellow. 𝗵𝗃𝗧𝗵𝗃. Is that a question or an answer, Izuchan? Well, I mean Izuchan. It used to be yellow Izuchan. But that was cause All Might had a lot of yellow Izuchan. And I still think it's a cool color Izuchan. But it's kinda hard to think of yellow without thinking of him Izuchan. So 𝗳𝗪𝙢𝗢𝗍𝗄. 𝗵𝗃𝗧𝗵𝗃. Oh well, 𝗵𝗃𝗧𝗵𝗃. Guess you'll just have to pick a new one, 𝗵𝗃𝗧𝗵𝗃. What about red? That's my favorite color. 𝗵𝗃𝗧𝗵𝗃. It's the color of blood, and it looks super pretty on people. Izuchan. Do you have a fascination with blood because of your quirk? Izuchan. Crap, sorry, that was rude, 𝗵𝗃𝗧𝗵𝗃. No, oh okay. I know you were just being curious. 𝗵𝗃𝗧𝗵𝗃. I don't need blood to survive like some people think. But I get cravings after going a while without drinking any 𝗵𝗃𝗧𝗵𝗃. I usually end up attacking some poor animal and drinking its blood to satisfy myself, Izuchan. Well, Izuchan, you could always drink my blood, Izuchan. If you want, Izuchan. 𝗵𝗃𝗧𝗵𝗃. Izuchan. You still there? Izuchan. Crap, did I overstep a boundary? 𝗵𝗃𝗧𝗵𝗃. 𝐒𝐭𝐚𝐲 Izuchan. 𝗵𝗃𝗧𝗵𝗃. Really? 𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗧𝗵𝗃. You mean it? Izuchan. Yeah, of course, Izuchan. As long as you don't take too much at a time, 𝗵𝗃𝗧𝗵𝗃. 𝐭𝐚𝐲 𝗔𝐭𝐝𝗧𝗵𝗃. Thank you so much, Izuchan 𝗵𝗃𝗧𝗵𝗃. You are literally an angel sent from heaven, 𝗵𝗃𝗧𝗵𝗃. Izuchan's name has been changed to Angel Angel. 𝗵𝗃𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗧𝗏. Angel. 𝗵𝗃𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗧𝗏. What it fits, 𝗵𝗃𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗧𝗏. Anyways, I should start craving within the next few days, so I'll tell you when I need some angel. Okey Angel. So how exactly is this gonna work? Like, are you gonna suck it out of me like a vampire or a 𝗵𝗃𝗧𝗵𝗃? Well, I can do that, but it'd look like a hickey angel. Is there literally any other way? I cannot go to school with a hickey 𝗵𝗃𝗧𝗵𝗃. I could do it in a place no one would see. Angel. 𝗵𝗃𝗧𝗵𝗃, please. 𝗵𝗃𝗧𝗵𝗃. Well, 𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗧𝗵𝗃. I could just use a needle, angel. Yay, let's do that, 𝗵𝗃𝗧𝗵𝗃. Okay. I already have some needles, so I can just take some next time we meet up. Izuku, dinner's ready. Be there in a sec, angel. Hey IGTG. But could we meet up at that cafe on Saturday? The one from earlier? 𝗵𝗃𝗧𝗵𝗃. Yup. What time? Angel, 10? 𝗵𝗃𝗧𝗵𝗃. Too early. 11? Angel, sounds good. See you then, 𝗵𝗃𝗧𝗵𝗃. See ya. Izuku turned off his phone with a smile and padded out of his room. His mom, having just finished setting dinner on the table, brightened when she saw him. Izuku, you look happy. Did you have a good day? Izuku nodded and sat down, picking up his chopsticks. I made a new friend. Though she tried to hide it, surprise flitted across his mother's face. Really? Izuku slurped up some noodles before replying. Yup, her name's Toga Himiko. That's great, honey, his mom smiled. You'll have to bring her over sometime. Izuku grinned and took another bite. You'd like her, Mom. She's really nice and cheerful, and she doesn't think my notes are creepy. He blushed. She said they were cute. A sly gleam appeared in his mother's eyes, and he hurriedly cut her off before she could say anything. And not like that. She thinks a lot of things are cute. A lot of things? His mom questioned. Or a lot of things about you? Izuku's silence as he shoved more food into his mouth was enough of an answer for her. She smirked and went back to her food. Just make sure you invite her over before you ask her out. Mom, Izuku sputtered, red as a tomato and arms waving wildly as his mom laughed. It took them both a few minutes to calm down. Either way, I'd still like to meet her. She sounds like a wonderful girl. Why, yeah, Izuku murmured. She is. They broke off into meaningless chatter after that. Izuku told her about his day minus All Might and Bakugo. He managed a convincing enough lie that he had accidentally dropped his journal and 𝗵𝗃𝗧𝗵𝗃 had returned it to him. And when it started raining, they'd taken shelter together. It was true enough, anyways. If Izuku's mom suspected anything, she didn't mention it. So he figured the story was good enough for her. He went to bed immediately after dinner, exhausted both mentally and physically. Before he laid down, however, he sent a quick message to 𝗵𝗃. Angel. Night 𝗵𝗃. 𝗵𝗃. Good night Izuku. Angel. Sweet dreams. 𝗵𝗃. Izuku smiled, plugged in his phone, and snuggled under his covers. He was asleep within minutes. Himiko liked her new friend. Izuku was super nice, super smart, and absolutely positively adorable. Plus, he didn't care about her quirk. He actually thought it was cool. No one had ever told her that before. Talking to him made her feel happy, warm, sunny. A nice change from the usual sad, gloomy, lonely that came from fake friends, mean bullies, and disappointed parents. Thinking about Izuku made her think about Izuku's bully. She scowled at the thought. He didn't deserve such a cute name because even though she didn't like him, she could admit that Kacchan was an adorable nickname when he made Izuku feel so dejected, cloudy, bitter. Luckily, Toga was there to help. She shook her head to shake away the sad thoughts and pulled out her phone to text Izuku. 𝗵𝗃. Hi Izuku. You done with school yet? It took a few minutes for a response, but Himiko didn't mind. Angel. 𝗧𝗪 it took so long to reply. Had to hide from Cake and 𝗵𝗃. Ugh. Want me to kill him for you? Angel. Kinda? 𝗵𝗃. I'm almost home, let me grab some knives, and I'll be right over Angel. Wait, no. Angel. 𝗵𝗃. I was joking 𝗵𝗃. Were you though? Angel. Mostly joking Angel. But please don't kill him 𝗵𝗃. Not even just a little stab. 𝗵𝗃. I won't even send him to a hospital. Angel. 𝗵𝗃. Angel. No. 𝗵𝗃. Finny 𝗵𝗃. He can live Angel. Thank you 𝗵𝗃. For now Angel. *Sigh** Angel. You know what? I'll take it 𝗵𝗃. 3 once again. There was a few minutes before Izuku sent another message. Himiko frowned when she saw it. Angel. Hey 𝗵𝗃. 𝗵𝗃. Yeah, Izuku. Angel. Remember what you said about heroes the other day? Angel. How they're all fake. 𝗵𝗃. Yeah. Another pause. Himiko figured he was hesitating. That was fine, she could wait. Angel. Did you really mean that? 𝗵𝗃. Yup. Heroes are self-absorbed, greedy bastards who only care about themselves 𝗵𝗃. They ignore the people who really need help in favor of putting away as many villains as possible to increase their popularity and payroll 𝗵𝗃. Plus, there's tons of instances of the HPSC covering stuff up in order to maintain a hero's spotless reputation. This pause was the longest. Angel. 𝗧𝗪 to leave so suddenly, but I have to go work on homework. I've got a big essay due soon and I want to make sure it's perfect. 𝗵𝗃. Okay, bye. Angel. Bye. Izuku placed his phone face down on the desk and sat back in his chair, letting out a deep breath. He felt bad for lying to 𝗵𝗃, but he needed to think. He'd always known that hero society wasn't perfect, but that fact had always been overshadowed by his love and adoration for heroes, specifically All Might. The rose-colored glasses had been ripped off now, though, and without them, Izuku could see the flaws more clearly. Of course, it might not be as bad as he was making it out to be. He and 𝗵𝗃 had just had bad experiences. Their opinions were biased. Sure, everything had flaws. Heroes were no exception. But they were heroes. How bad could they be? Apparently really bad, a part of him whispered. Even All Might, the perfect hero, symbol of peace, isn't half the hero he's made out to be. If All Might is a lie, what else is? Izuku shook his head quickly. Sitting here speculating wasn't going to get anything done. He needed facts. Opening up his laptop, Izuku typed corrupt heroes into the search bar and, with hardened eyes and a decisive nod, hit enter. What he found was incredible. Cover-ups of crimes ranging from bribery to assault. Publishers and reporters being sued for slander and losing everything. Villains who were victims of excessive force. Stories of kids like him and Himiko who reached out to heroes for help and were denied. During his search, one name came up repeatedly in recent articles. Stain. A quick search in a new tab revealed him to be a villain who killed heroes he deemed false. While Izuku didn't agree with his methods, he could admit that his base motivations were understandable. He wondered what could have happened to Stain to make him resort to such extreme methods. He wondered if there was anything that could make him turn to those methods as well. Closing out the tab on Stain, Izuku turned back to his original search and started searching for individual heroes. At one point, he grabbed a notebook, a blank one. He wanted to keep his research separate from his analysis journals and started sections on the majority of heroes that came up. When Endeavor turned out to be the one with the most criticism, Izuku wasn't sure if he was surprised or not. When his mom called him for dinner, Izuku realized he'd been at it for several hours, and he still hadn't found everything he wanted to. Of course, a lot of that information was probably locked up in police databases and HPSC files. At dinner, he mentioned to his mom that he was going to learn coding, to which she responded enthusiastically and offered read. Insisted to pay for some online courses. After some pushing and prodding, Izuku gave up on resisting and allowed her to do what she wanted. When they finished, Izuku returned to his research with the excuse of homework and the promise not to stay up too late. He didn't get much sleep that night. Something was up with Deku. The nerd was quieter recently, but also happier. Ever since that day, Katsuki hadn't seen that damn notebook. Probably because he destroyed it. He didn't talk about being a hero anymore, didn't ramble about quirks or hero fights, didn't even try to defend himself from Katsuki and those extras that followed him. He was also smiling and looking at his phone a lot, which was weird because the only person he texted was Auntie Inko, and she wouldn't be talking to him that much during school. Did the damn nerd get an actual friend or something? Katsuki scoffed at the thought. Like anyone would want to become friends with a quirkless weakling like him. Still, whatever it was pissing Katsuki off. He was going to figure out what the hell was going on with the damn nerd if it killed him. Despite what some people may think, Izuku was not stupid. He could tell Kacchan noticed something different about him. Hell, he could practically feel the heated glares being sent his way. But strangely, it didn't bother him. Normally, this amount of attention from Kacchan would set Izuku on edge. A few weeks ago, he would have been sweating bullets and restless with anxiety. It was most likely because of what Izuku had been referring to as that one day. Kacchan had been acting differently, too. He was louder and more aggressive than usual, probably trying to prove that he wasn't weak. Izuku wasn't sure who he was trying to prove that to. In the eyes of their peers, the fact that he was able to put up such a good fight and get out without so much as a scratch just made him even more amazing. The Izuku of the past would have thought the same thing. Now he was just annoyed. Today, Kacchan looked about ready to explode, so Izuku figured a confrontation would be happening soon. He contemplated putting it off, but waiting would just make Kacchan even angrier. Izuku sighed through his nose. Good thing Mom had restocked the medkit recently. Speaking of Mom, 𝗵𝗃 had been asking about her recently. Apparently, she really wanted to know the woman who had raised such a sunshiny, angelic, adorable son who is too good for this world. Seriously, this woman is a saint. I must meet her immediately. Which was how Izuku had ended up promising to bring 𝗵𝗃 over to his house for dinner on Saturday. Upon finding out, his mom had immediately asked what her favorite food was so she could make it. 𝗵𝗃 had said blood. Izuku had suggested katsudon. 𝗵𝗃 had said that was fine too. But anyways, back to Kacchan. School was almost over, so Izuku had little time to prepare himself for the beating that was most certainly coming his way. He just hoped that Kacchan wouldn't bring any of his lackeys along with him. When the bell rang, Izuku was the first out the door. He was able to get out of the school and on his way home before Kacchan caught up with him. Oi, Deku. Izuku almost flinched. Almost. Kacchan stalked up to him, a seemingly permanent scowl etched into his face. Izuku frowned when he found himself resisting the urge to roll his eyes. That was new. Normally he'd be stammering and trembling. What the fuck has been up with you lately, huh? And nothing, Kacchan. Ah, there was the stammer. He'd wondered what had happened to it. Kacchan scoffed. Yeah, right? Stop fucking lying. You're on your phone all the fucking time. And I haven't seen you write in one of your fucking journals since. He cut himself off. But Izuku knew what he was about to say. He almost smirked. What's the point of writing in a journal when you're just going to destroy it, Kacchan? The confidence in his voice surprised both Izuku and Kacchan. A buzz in his pocket brought Izuku's attention to his phone. 𝗵𝗃 had texted. Kacchan regained his bearings before Izuku could text her back. You're still acting really fucking weird, he growled. The hell's up with you? Having your lifelong dream crushed can do that to a person. This time, Izuku did smirk, though it was forced. He could feel that rare burst of confidence fading. He wanted to make sure he got his point across before the stutter came back. What's wrong, Kacchan? I thought you wanted me to give up. Kacchan's scowl morphed into a sneer. Oh, so you finally accepted that a quirkless weakling like you could never be a hero. Fucking finally. Thought you'd never come around. Can I go home now? Izuku drawled as his phone buzzed 2 more times. Kacchan studied him for a minute longer, made some weird noise that might have been a huff or a growl, and stalked away. When he was out of sight, Izuku pulled out his phone to check 𝗵𝗃's messages. 𝗵𝗃. 𝗧𝗵𝗃. Hello, 𝗵𝗃. Is that Kacchan dude bothering you again? Himiko huffed. Another minute had gone by and Izuku still hadn't replied. What was keeping him? Maybe it was Kacchan again. She scowled, but immediately brightened when her phone dinged. Izuku. Angel. Hi Himiko. I'm fine. He was avoiding the question. Himiko scowled again, anger, frustration, hate swirling through her blood. Himiko. So he was bothering you. I'm gonna kill him. Angel. Himiko. Izuku. Angel. Himiko. He didn't even touch me. Himiko. He didn't? Angel. Nope. Circumflex Angel. We just talked Angel. Now that I think about it. It was kinda weird Himiko. He didn't touch you though. Angel. Not even a poke Himiko. Alright. I'll back off Angel. Seriously, you need to stop threatening to kill him Angel. My resolve is growing weak Angel. Wait, no, forget I said that Himiko. Too late Himiko. I'll wear you down eventually Himiko. So anyways, are we still on for tomorrow? Angel. Blatant subject change, but I'll allow it Angel. Yup, we're all set. Angel. I've finished your quirk analysis, and I even made 2 copies so you could keep one. Himiko. Alwa, Izuku, you're so nice. It's adorable. Angel. Angel. Thanks Angel. IGTG now. Recently joined an online coding class, and I need to stay on top of that. Angel. Saya. Himiko. Bye. Himiko smiled and slipped her phone into her pocket. She was sad that Izuku had to go, but it was okay because he still left behind a feeling of fuzzy warm happy when he was gone. Plus, she would get to see him tomorrow. The thought made her excited, cheery, thrilled. She skipped the whole way home. Izuku left his house early hoping to arrive before Himiko. But he shouldn't have bothered because, according to what Himiko told him when he got there, she had already been waiting at the cafe for half an hour. She'd also downed 2 cups of hot chocolate and was working on her 3rd. Izuku would have been worried about her sugar intake level had he not ordered a latte that was 80% cream and sugar and 20% latte. So, Himiko started, taking a sip of her hot chocolate and shifting in her chair. It was a nice day, so they were sitting outside, under the awning. You have the analyses? Of course. Izuku grinned, pulling 2 notebooks out of his bag and handing one to Himiko, who grabbed it eagerly and flipped it open. You drew me, she gasped. Well, yeah, Izuku stammered, rubbing the back of his neck. I draw everyone that I analyze. Is that all right? Well, I asked you to analyze my quirk, so of course it's all right. Her eyes skimmed the pages, giving each sentence a brief glance before moving on to the next one. She wasn't reading it word for word, but Izuku didn't mind. He was just glad she was interested. Oh, I've never thought of this, Himiko exclaimed. Izuku leaned over to see what she was pointing at. About whether the injuries transfer over, Himiko nodded. I think they would. I mean, it's still my body. I just look like someone else. What if the person you transformed into had an injury? Himiko hummed thoughtfully. I don't think it would transfer over, unless it was a really old injury that healed wrong. Izuku chewed on his pen, staring at the journal. You said you can copy their clothes too, right? She nodded. How does that work? Is it the last outfit you saw them in? Or do you get to choose which outfit? What exactly counts as clothes? Like, say, if they had a support item on, or a dagger strapped to their wrist. Ooh, Himiko squealed. You're so smart. And it's so cute when you analyze stuff. I am. Izuku rubbed the back of his neck, blushing furiously. Himiko beamed. Your eyebrows get all scrunched together, and when you're writing, your tongue pokes out of your mouth, like this. She demonstrated, eyes crossed to look at her tongue. Izuku was reminded of a cat blepping. And then you start muttering, and it's absolutely adorable. Izuku stammered out some reply that might have been a thank you, but he honestly couldn't tell because he was too busy trying not to die of embarrassment. He opted to stare at the table instead of looking at Himiko. The blue paint was sun-bleached. Someone should really get around to repainting this. Himiko giggled and ordered another hot chocolate. So anyways, about what you were saying. I think it only applies to like, something that you could buy at a clothing store or something. Or maybe when I transform it just looks like support items, but they don't actually work. I honestly don't really know. We'll have to test it out. Yeah, Izuku took a sip of his latte in an attempt to calm his breathing. It sort of worked. He forced his brain to focus on something else. So the length of time you can stay transformed depends on the amount of blood you drink, right? Yep, Himiko grinned. I think it's like 15 minutes per ounce, but I'm not really sure since I've never gotten an exact amount of blood to test that out on. She looked down at her hands. I've never gotten to test anything out, really. Well, that's changing now, Izuku huffed. We're gonna find out exactly what you can do. And then we're gonna improve on that. Oh, Izuchin, 𝗵𝗃 launched herself at him with a laugh and wrapped him in a hug. You're the absolute best friend ever. Thank you so much. And he was blushing again. Why, yeah, of course. It's really no problem. Still, she pulled back to look him in the eyes. Thank you. Izuku nodded, and she grinned, satisfied, before grabbing her hot chocolate and taking another gulp. Then she placed her hands on her hips. I'm hungry. Let's go get ice cream. But we still have to pay, Izuku protested weakly as she grabbed his arm. A woman nearby heard and smiled. Don't worry about it, you two. I'll pay for it. Consider it my treat for such a lovely couple. Izuku almost protested that they weren't a couple, but he knew it was futile. Would she still have paid for it if she'd known that Izuku was quirkless and 𝗵𝗃 drank blood? Izuku shook off the thought, shoving his journals and pen back into his bag, and allowed 𝗵𝗃 to drag him to a nearby ice cream parlor. 𝗵𝗃 was practically glowing with joy, happiness, cheerfulness. She hadn't felt this amazing since, well, ever. She somehow brightened even more when they stopped in front of the counter and peered at the many flavors. Which one are you gonna get, Izuchin? I'm having pomegranate. Izuchin regarded the ice cream uncertainly, breath fogging up the glass. I usually get, well, he blushed and his voice dropped to a murmur. I usually get All Might flavored, but I don't. I think I want to try something else this time. I just don't know what to choose. Well, I'll help you choose, then. 𝗵𝗃 stepped forward and examined their choices. She considered getting him pomegranate since that was her favorite. But then she spotted a green-colored flavor and grinned. Here, how about this one? Matcha? He questioned. Yeah, 𝗵𝗃 said, eyes sparkling. It's green, and you're green, so it's perfect. Okay then, Izuchin smiled in that adorable way of his. Matcha it is. Great! She bounced up to the counter, pulling Izuchin behind her, and they ordered. As soon as they both had their ice cream, 𝗵𝗃 dragged Izuchin out of the ice cream parlor and out onto the sidewalk. She watched as he hesitantly licked his ice cream and felt a burst of satisfaction, glee, delight when his lips quirked upwards. Content. She started on her own treat. They strolled down the sidewalk in silence, but it wasn't awkward. It was the kind of nice, pleasant, calm silence that friends shared. 𝗵𝗃 liked it. The silence was broken by a shout from a nearby alleyway. 𝗵𝗃 and Izuchin quickly met each other's eyes, then hurried towards the mouth of the alley. They found a scene that made 𝗵𝗃's blood boil with outrage, empathy, viciousness. Two teens stood in front of a girl with wide eyes and her back against the wall. Her stance was confident, brave, defiant, but 𝗵𝗃 could see her trembling. So could the other kids, apparently. One of them laughed. The girl didn't move. Leave me alone. Or what, huh? You'll make me sneeze to death. In response, the girl grabbed the bully's arm and she sneezed violently. Next to 𝗵𝗃, Izuchin was muttering. She tilted her head so she could hear him better. Obviously has some sort of sneeze quirk. Seems to be touch activated. Taller girl has rough-looking skin. Looks almost like armadillo plating. No obvious mutations for the other girl. Most likely has an emitter quirk. Small chance of a transformation quirk. Izuchin. She cut him off. He looked over at her. We need to help. He nodded. 𝗵𝗃 nodded back and stalked into view of the bullies. Ugh, you two need to stop. Bullying is so not cute. What she said. Izuchin stammered. It was adorable. Mind your own damn business, the armadillo girl growled. 𝗵𝗃 grinned and used her free hand. She still hadn't finished her ice cream, and she wasn't about to throw it away to pull a knife out of her pocket. Izuchin's eyes widened slightly, but he said nothing. How about no? She tilted her knife so it glinted in the sunlight and licked her ice cream. Leave her alone. And what are you gonna do if we don't, huh? The other bully sneered. 𝗵𝗃 silently handed Izuchin her ice cream and took a few menacing steps forward, putting on a smile that showed off her fangs and doing a little bounce. She would have looked like an excited schoolgirl if it weren't for the knife. You know, I think you'd look much prettier covered in red. She pointed the knife at Armadillo Girl. Don't you think, Izuchin? Izuku got the hint and nodded quickly. Oh, absolutely, 𝗵𝗃. I've heard that red on white looks great. He beamed at the white-haired girl, who paled in fear, dread, worry. Wanna help us test that out? Fuck off, the girl sputtered. Yeah, Armadillo Girl smirked. I bet you don't even have good quirks. She folded her arm and puffed out her chest. Arrogance, cockiness, pride radiated off of her. So, what are they, huh? I'll show you. 𝗵𝗃 pounced towards them, knife hand outstretched. I'll just need a little bit of your blood. The white-haired girl shrieked and jumped away. You fucking creep. Ugh, she's not worth it. Armadillo girl wrinkled her nose in disgust, worry, disdain. Let's just go. Himiko's eyes narrowed as they stalked away. Izuchin hurried over to the victim. Himiko joined him. Hey, are you okay? Get away from me. The girl pushed Himiko away, snarling. I had it handled. I didn't need help from a weirdo like you. Leave me alone. She ran off, leaving a startled, shocked, hurt Himiko staring after her while Izuchin scowled. His face softened when he turned to her. Don't listen to any of them. Their opinions don't matter. Who are they to call you a creep? They don't even know you. Yeah, Himiko said quietly, taking back her ice cream and licking it. Let's just go somewhere else. I'm having dinner at your house, right? Izuchin nodded. Let's head over there. We can hang out in your room and test my quirk and stuff. Oh, that's a great idea, Izuchin brightened. Come on, follow me. He started down the sidewalk, Himiko close behind, and they started up a steady stream of mindless chatter. Their ice cream melted halfway there, so Izuchin and Himiko had to throw it away. They both pouted at that, but upon seeing each other's faces they broke into uncontrollable giggles. So, Izuchin began once they got their laughter under control. What do you think we should try out first? Himiko tilted her head to the side. What do you mean? Your quirk, Izuchin elaborated. What do you think we should test out first? Oh, she put a finger to her chin, frowning in thought. I think we should try out that injury thing. Only small ones though, like a cut on my arm. Really? His eyes widened. You're willing to get hurt to test out my theories? Yup, Himiko chirped. And after that we can test out all of the clothes stuff. She clapped her hands, a bubble of joy, warmth, happiness fluttering through her stomach at his smile. Yeah, Izuchin beamed. I've never actually gotten the chance to test my theories out with someone. This is gonna be so fun. Himiko giggled and skipped ahead, stopping at a street corner to wait for Izuchin to catch up. Come on, Slowpoke, let's go. All right, I'm coming, Izuchin chuckled, trotting up to her. She grabbed his arm and pulled him along behind her, forcing him to walk quicker. He laughed. Himiko, you don't even know how to get there. Well then, just tell me where to go. I want to meet your mom as soon as possible. Left here, she swerved left, almost crashing into a woman and her child. Izuchin apologized as much as he could before she dragged him away. He sped up so he was beside Himiko instead of in front of her, which made it easier to both navigate and avoid running over startled pedestrians. By the time they arrived at Izuchin's house, they were both panting and laughing. Izuchin raised his hand to open the door and Himiko realized they were still holding hands. She let go, noticing his blush, and they headed inside. Mom, I'm home, and Himikon's here. Oh, his mother hurried from the kitchen, a smile on her face. You must be Himiko. It's a pleasure to finally meet you. I'm Izuku's mother. I can tell. Something in Himiko warmed at the pure love, happiness, gentleness this woman could show with just a few words. It's nice to meet you too, Mrs. Midoriya. Oh please, just call me Inko, she smiled. And Himiko decided that yes, God was real. Because how else could this angel of a woman exist? You're a friend of Izuku's, no need to be so formal. Okay, Inko nodded. All right, you two go ahead and get on with whatever you were planning on doing. Izuku is practically vibrating with anticipation. Izuchin sputtered out a denial, but Inko just sent them off with a smile and went back to the kitchen. Well, Izuchin said once the door had shut behind them, placing his hands on his hips and turning to face Himiko. Let's get to work, shall we? Himiko beamed and nodded. Time for the real fun to begin. All right, so, Izuku hopped up onto his bed. First things first. You have your needles? Yup, Himiko chirped, pulling 3 syringes out of nowhere. You ready? Izuku nodded and pulled up his sleeve, holding out his exposed wrist for Himiko. She sat next to him on the bed, looking giddy, and gently poked one of the needles into his vein. It stung, but Izuku had gotten way worse from Kacchan, so it didn't bother him. He watched, almost if he were hypnotized, as Himiko filled the syringe with his blood. She pulled it out, placing it on his nightstand, and repeated the process twice more with her other needles. So now you just drink it. Himiko stuck one of the needles in her mouth and squirted it out, groaning like she just tasted the best thing in the world. Maybe she had. Her quirk could be affecting her taste buds. She quickly drained the last 2, licking her lips, and grinned. Okay, I'm all ready now. What are we testing first? Injuries, like you said earlier. Izuku bounced up off the bed and looked around. We just need... Oh, there. He grabbed a pair of scissors off his desk. then brought one of the notebooks and a pen out of his bag and padded back over to 𝗵𝗃. So, how do you want to do this? 𝗵𝗃 tilted her head to the side like a confused kitten. What do you mean? He held up the scissors. Do you want to cut yourself or do you want me to do it? That would sound really weird out of context, Izuku thought. Then realized that it was weird even with context because who injured themselves in order to test out their quirk? 𝗵𝗃 and Izuku did, apparently. I'll do it. 𝗵𝗃 took the scissors from him and made a small cut on her arm. Izuku winced at the sight, but it didn't seem to bother her. Ready? She chirped. Izuku nodded eagerly, then watched in amazement as she morphed and changed until he was staring himself in the face, albeit with 𝗵𝗃's clothes on over his. Whoa, it was weird, seeing his own face grinning back at him like that. 𝗵𝗃 giggled. You look so cute like that, Izuchan. You, thanks, he blushed, hiding his face behind his notebook. Is the cut still there? Let me see, 𝗵𝗃 pulled her sleeve up. The cut was still there. Okay, so injuries transfer over, Izuku muttered, scribbling in his journal. Now to test out clothing. Crap. Am I wearing anything that couldn't count as clothing? There was a pen in my pocket. Let me see. 𝗵𝗃 checked the pockets of her hoodie and came up empty. Nope, no pens here. I wonder what the clothing depends on, Izuku wondered aloud. Does it depend on when you took the blood or when you last saw them? Or could you pick which outfit? He hummed in thought. Hey 𝗵𝗃, do you remember what I was wearing when we first met? Uh-huh, it was adorable. All right. Could you try changing into me with that outfit on? Sure. Let's move to the bathroom, though. Okay. Izuku followed her as she trotted out of the room and into the bathroom. And then she just stood there, staring at him. After a few seconds of awkward silence, she finally moved. Welp, looks like I can't change outfits, she chirped. What's next? Stay here. Change back into yourself. He rushed back to his room, leaving his journal and pen in the bathroom, switched his hoodie out for a short-sleeved t-shirt, then came running back to a confused-looking 𝗵𝗃. All right, now change back into M. Why is there slime on the floor? Side effect of my quirk. 𝗵𝗃 shrugged. Well, I can see why you wanted to move to the bathroom now, Izuku chuckled. I'll have to clean that up later. But for now, his eyes brightened. Change back into me. Concentrate on the outfit I was wearing before. Got it. 𝗵𝗃 closed her eyes this time and her features shifted and changed until she once again looked like Izuku. But instead of the hoodie he'd had on when she drew his blood, she was wearing the t-shirt he'd changed into. All right, Izuku said, writing in his notebook. It looks like you changed into the last version of them that you saw. He frowned and thought. I wonder what you'd look like if you had never seen them before. Would your quirk even work? 𝗵𝗃 giggled. Ha, quirk and work. That rhymes. Izuku hadn't heard her, having zoned out. But 𝗵𝗃 waved her hand as if to say nothing, and he shrugged and went back to his musings. Oh, you can change back if you want? Nah, 𝗵𝗃 said, leaning against the wall. I want to stay like this. It's nice. Okay. Izuku shrugged, hopping up onto the bathroom counter because he wanted somewhere to sit, and that was the closest available area. 𝗵𝗃 joined him. After another 45 minutes of testing and a considerable amount of sludge on the floor, they moved back to his bedroom after 𝗵𝗃 had changed back into her usual self, and they cleaned up the slime. They still had a few hours before dinner, so 𝗵𝗃 dragged him to the computer and logged into an online chat room that she said was for people like us. Izuchan. Knife to meet you. Henny ni 𝐒𝐭𝐚𝐲. Oh hey knife. KS agent number 666. Yo knifey what's up 𝐕𝗃𝗧𝗵𝗲. He knife to meet you. I have brought a friend 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗲 123. Oh, is this the green bean you were telling us about knife to meet you? Yep. Green bean? Izuku stammered. 𝗵𝗃 grinned. Well, I had to call you something. Knife to meet you. He's blushing at being called a green bean knife to meet you. Hang on let him talk real quick knife to meet you. Hi, nice to meet you all. GB Nota Condiment. Yo, are you ready to become disillusioned with Hero Society knife to meet you? I became disillusioned the moment All Might told me I couldn't become a hero because I'm quirkless GB 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗲 123. Bro, that's the best villain origin story ever 𝗕𝗧𝗧𝗵𝗲. Well, that's depressing 𝗬𝐭𝐚𝐲. How have you not already killed someone? Knife to meet you. He's too much of a cinnamon roll. 3 Nota Condiment. For now 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗲 123. Well, that's not ominous at all 𝗕𝗧𝗧𝗵𝗲𝗃𝗲. Seriously, how are you still a cinnamon roll after being rejected by the #1 hero? with the immediate acceptance of his quirklessness, and having been called a cinnamon roll twice now. Izuku was too busy trying not to faint to reply. Knife to 𝗵𝘃𝗲. His mom is too much of an angel. 𝐒𝐭𝐚𝐲 666. Imagine having loving parents. 𝗬𝗧𝗵𝗲. 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗧𝗃𝗧𝗃𝗧𝗃𝗧𝗃𝗧𝗃𝗧𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃 amazing. Note a condiment. That's why we're all in this chat room. 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗲 123. Can't argue with that, Izuku. Toga, dinner's ready. Coming, Mom. After promising that Izuku would make an account, 𝗵𝗃𝗲 bid their friends goodbye and logged out of the chat. They padded out to the dining room, where 3 steaming bowls of katsudon sat on the table. Izuku's mom beamed when she saw them and quickly gestured for them to sit down. So, she prompted as they slid into their seats. Tell me more about yourself, 𝗵𝗃𝗲. Well, 𝗵𝗃𝗲 slurped up some noodles. I'm 15 years old, I go to Randamu High School, and I love the color red, especially when it's blood. She practically swooned. Izuku's mom raised an eyebrow at him. She has a blood quirk, he explained. If she drinks someone's blood, she can turn into them. His mother nodded in understanding. Well, I'm sure you two had a lot of fun testing it out today, she smiled. 𝗵𝗃𝗲 beamed and nodded. It was so fun. Izuchan came up with so many interesting ideas, and we got to test a whole bunch of them out. I've never gotten to use my quirk so much. Izuku blushed and stuffed a piece of chicken in his mouth, staring down at his bowl while his mother smirked knowingly. Yes, that certainly sounds like a lot of fun. I'm glad Izuku could help you out with that. 𝗵𝗃𝗲 nodded so quickly Izuku was worried she'd get whiplash, mouth so stuffed with food that her cheeks popped out like a chipmunk. This is the best tasting I've ever had in my whole life. Besides blood, of course, she announced once she'd swallowed. You're a great cook, Inko. Oh, thank you so much, Toga. This is Izuku's favorite meal, so I've made it so often that I've practically perfected the recipe. They both giggled and Izuku blushed again. The rest of the meal was spent chatting and teasing Izuku, with more of the former than the latter. By the end of dinner, Izuku felt like a tomato in a microwave. Hot, red, and about to explode. While his mother cleaned up the table, Izuku walked 𝗵𝗃𝗲 to the door. I had a lot of fun today. Me too, 𝗵𝗃𝗲 beamed. Your mom was really nice. Let's do this again sometime, Kay? Why, yeah, Izuku nodded. 𝗵𝗃𝗲 leaned forwards and squeezed him in a hug. He'd hug back, but his arms had been pinned to his sides, so he just stood there awkwardly until she pulled away. She spun around and trotted out the door. I'll see you later. Bye, be safe, Izuku called after her as she skipped away. She looked back at him with a sharp grin. A knife had appeared in her hand. Aren't I always? She was down the stairs and out of sight before Izuku could reply. He sighed with a smile and closed the door, walking to the kitchen to help his mom clean up. His mother grinned. She's such a nice girl, isn't she, Izuku? Why, yeah, Izuku stammered, grabbing one of the bowls and scrubbing it off. Here, sweetie, let me take care of this. She nudged him out of the way and took over, sending him a smirk. You've had a very long day, haven't you? Go get some rest. Izuku did not like the way she said that. Not at all. Blushing and stuttering, he nodded and practically raced to his room, just barely managing to not slam the door behind him. He let out a long breath, finally managing to get his blush under control. Why must moms be like this? He shook his head quickly and headed to his computer, plopping down in the chair. Okay, what was that website 𝗵𝗃𝗲 had shown me? Oh, here. He clicked on the link and a 𝗏𝗏𝗃𝗏 page popped up. He debated over the username for a few minutes before deciding on Greenbean, since that was what they already knew him as. Taking a deep breath, he hit confirm and entered the chat room. Greenbean has joined the chat. Greenbean. Hi, Chaos Agent number 666. 𝗵𝗃𝗲. The green boy has returned. 𝐒𝐭𝐚𝐲. You will welcome back the _Kraken. Oh, hello, Lord of the Fries. Oh, so this is who you were talking about. Chaos Agent number 666. Yep, Chaos Agent number 666. Greenie, meet Lord Fries, our internet dad and holder of the brain cell Greenbean. Nice, I always wanted a dad, the _Kraken. Oh, you poor thing, note a condiment. Oh, cool, another person with daddy issues, trademark, note a condiment. How many is that now? 𝗏𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗏. 5. 𝗏𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗏. You, chaos, void, knife, and now Greenie 𝗎𝗧𝗏𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗏. Nice 𝗎𝗧𝗏𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗏. Anyways, introductions, everyone, 𝗎𝗧𝗏𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗏. Hi, I'm Void, 𝐎𝐩𝐢𝗐𝗏, note a condiment. Condiment, 𝗧𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏. I'm nugs, gender fluid, currently I'm a she. Chaos Agent number 666. Chaos, 𝐎𝐩𝐽𝐻𝑒𝐻𝑒𝐻, Lord of the Fries, I'm Fries, 𝗵𝘃𝗲, and everyone in this chat are my children _Kraken. Hello. I'm Kraken, 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗲, and since Fries' child, now I will protect you with my life 𝐒𝐭𝐚𝐲. Wow, Kraken sure got attached fast, Green Bean. It's nice to meet you all. You can call me Green, I guess. I am Lord of the Fries. Empty and Snorlax aren't on right now, but they're 𝗵𝘃𝗲 and 𝐎𝐻𝑒𝐻𝑒𝐻, respectively the _Kraken. Okay, introductions over the _Kraken. So, what's your tragic backstory trademark? Lord of the Fries. Oh my gods, Kraken, you can't just ask people that. Green Bean. No, I don't mind. 𝐒𝐭𝐚𝐲, are you sure? You don't have to, Green Bean. I'm sure 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗧 note a condiment. He did already give us part of it earlier, 𝗒𝐭𝐚𝐲. True, Green Bean. Better buckle up. It's a long one, 𝐻IATUS number 666. Hoo boy. Note a condiment. Note a condiment. He's been typing for 2 minutes now, 𝗒𝐿𝐴𝐽𝐻. Kraken, what have you done, the _Kraken? 𝐒𝐻𝑒𝐽𝐻𝑒𝐻𝑒𝐻. He did say it was long, Lord of the Fries. I'm worried, Green Bean. So you all know I'm quirkless, right? Well, as you can probably guess, not everyone is as accepting of it as you. Even before my diagnosis, I'd get picked on because I'm soft and weak. And then we found out I was quirkless and everything went downhill. My dad left a week later, and I haven't heard from him since. My childhood friend turned into my worst bully. Thing is, I've always wanted to be a hero. Ever since I learned what the word meant, it's been my dream, the thing that's kept me going no matter what. You can guess how this went with everyone else. After my diagnosis, everyone was telling me to give up. Can't be a hero without a quirk, right? My mom tries to be supportive, but I can tell she's constantly worrying about me and wishing I'd choose something else. That childhood friend I mentioned earlier. His quirk turned out to be powerful and flashy, perfect for hero work. He'd already had a big ego, but with everyone telling him how amazing he was and how great a hero he'd be, it only got bigger. Our teachers reinforced a might makes right mindset in him, and seeing how I'm quirkless, he sees me as the lowest of the low, nothing but a pebble on his path to greatness. Still, I never gave up. Researched quirks and heroes and filled notebooks with analyses. Then, about a week ago, he crossed a line. Almost ruined my notebook and told me to jump off a roof and hope I'd be reborn with a quirk. 𝐻IATUS number 666. Holy shit, the _Kraken. Tell me where he lives. I just want to talk 𝐒𝐻𝑒𝐽𝑻𝗲𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗧𝗏. 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗧𝗵𝗃, Lord of the Fries. Do you want a hug? Green Bean? Yeah, 𝗒𝐿𝐴𝐽𝗄. I am so sorry, Greenie, you are too good for this world, note a condiment. Didn't you say something about All Might earlier? Green Bean. Oh, I'm getting to that, Green Bean. So, the same day all that shit happened, I was attacked by a villain. Remember that sludge villain on the news? He went after me first. The _Kraken. Oh fuck no, 𝗬𝗏𝗃𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗧𝗏. Bitch, what Lord of the Fries? All Might saved you, though, right? Green Bean. Yep, Green Bean. The #1 hero, symbol of peace. The main thing that kept me going all these years, Lord of the Fries. I don't like where this is going, Green Bean. I mentioned this earlier, but for those who weren't here, I asked him if I could become a hero without a quirk, 𝐻IATUS number 666. He fucking didn't, Green Bean. He did, 𝗒𝗿𝗄𝗎𝗄. That motherfucker, the _Kraken. BRB gonna go murder the symbol of peace 𝐒𝐻𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗧𝗏. Hold up, Kraken, I'm coming with you, Snorlax, 𝗬𝗏𝗏 is online. Lord of the Fries. Kraken. Void. What have I said about murder? The _Kraken. Always secure an alibi first and wear gloves to hide your fingerprints, Lord of the Fries. Good Snorlax, 𝐒𝐽𝐻𝗄. Wait, who are we murdering? 𝗒𝗿𝗄𝗎𝗃. Hi, Snorlax. Scroll up. Snorlax, 𝗬𝗏𝗏. Snorlax, 𝗬𝗏𝗏. I'm too tired for this shit. Kacchan was being attacked. His body was coated in sludge, eyes wide and fearful, almost like he was pleading for help. Izuku watched gleefully. Kacchan was finally getting what he deserved. He was going away. He'd never torment Izuku again. Izuku couldn't breathe. Slime forced its way down his throat, cutting off his airway. A familiar cackle echoed in his ears. Explosions popped against his skin. His eyes watered as black spots danced across his vision. A blurry figure stood in front of him with a wide grin and a reassuring laugh. All Might was there. He'd save him. He saved everyone. But All Might's image flickered and disappeared, replaced by his true form, frail and skeleton-like. You think I'd save a quirkless Deku like you? He sneered in Kacchan's voice. Pathetic. No, All Might, wait. Izuku clawed at the slime pouring into his mouth, twisted away from the explosions and cackling. But his fingers slipped through the sludge, and the explosions were relentless. All Might, please. I'm not useless, please. Izuku awoke with a gasp, gagging and choking on nothing. He pushed himself into a sitting position, hacking on nothing but air. Izuku blinked, looking around. Where was that coming from? Izuku, are you okay? He looked to the side and his phone. He'd called 𝗵𝗃 without realizing. 𝗵𝗃? Izuku. It was just his name. But Izuku could already feel himself relaxing at the sound of her voice. Hey, 𝗵𝗃. Sorry if I woke you up. It's fine. If I have to wake up, I'm glad it's cause of you. Izuku was glad she wasn't there to see his blush. Still, sorry. I'll let you go back to sleep. Hang on a sec. Izuku's fingers stopped mere millimeters over the end call button. Why, yeah. You wouldn't have called me in the middle of the night for no reason. What's going on? It's nothing. Really, I'm sorry, Izuku stammered. I didn't mean to. Was it a nightmare? Izuku's silence was apparently enough of an answer for her. Tell me about it, 𝗵𝗃 prompted. It was the slime villain, Izuku started. And Kacchan too. I didn't see him, though. Just his voice. His voice dropped to a whisper. And his explosions. Oh, Angel, 𝗵𝗃 said softly, which startled him. Because while she'd called him that multiple times over text, she'd never said it out loud. He liked it. You know that nothing he says about you is true, right? You're not weak or useless or a Deku. She spat the word. You're Izuku, my best friend and the sweetest, most kindest person in the whole wide world. You're worth, like, a gajillion times more than him. Izuku chuckled and wiped away the tears he hadn't realized were falling. You really think that, 𝗵𝗃? Yup, 𝗵𝗃 said, popping the pea. He sniffed, rubbing his eyes. Thank you. Don't thank me, 𝗵𝗃 giggled. I was just telling the truth. Still, thank you. Izuku snuggled back under his blankets, placing his phone next to the pillow. 𝗵𝗃? Yeah? Do you think I could be a hero? Of course, she answered. You're super smart, and could be really good at fighting if you trained yourself. But, she paused. Do you still want to be a hero? The determined yes that would usually answer that question was on the tip of his tongue, and yet he felt himself hesitating. Being a hero had been his dream since, forever. For as long as he could remember, that's all he'd ever wanted. But did he still want it? Izuku stared at his walls, still covered in images of the symbol of peace, because he hadn't been able to bring himself to take them down. But the smile that had once felt encouraging and reassuring now left him with a bitter taste in his mouth. I don't know, he finally answered. I don't think so. Good, she stated firmly. Your talents are wasted with those fakes. Izuku hummed out a noncommittal reply and stared at the soft glow coming from his phone. Hey 𝗵𝗃? 𝗵𝗃? I know tomorrow's a school day, but do you want to come over? I might need some help taking down some posters. I'd love to, 𝗵𝗃 squealed. It's about time you got rid of those things. They're hideous. Izuku snorted. I'm just worried about finding a place to dump it all. Why not just burn it? 𝗵𝗃 suggested. Izuku blinked. Why hadn't he thought of that? That's a good idea, she giggled. Plus, it would be really satisfying. Izuku smiled. Yeah, it would. They lapsed into a comfortable silence, but neither of them hung up, content to just sit there quietly. Eventually, though, Izuku yawned. Dang, 𝗵𝗃 laughed. I could hear that yawn even over the phone. You should get some rest, Angel. Izuku blushed. Why, yeah, probably. Could you stay on the phone, though? Just talk to me. About? Anything. Okay, 𝗵𝗃 launched into a ramble, hopping from one topic to another without pause. Izuku fell asleep to her gushing about a TV series that talked about serial killers. He made a mental note to ask her about the next day. Himiko fell quiet, listening to Izuku's slow breaths. Izuku, you still awake? She whispered, feeling a flutter of fondness, warmth, protectiveness when there was no reply. She smiled and hung up, plugging her phone back in, pulled a knife from her drawer, and fiddled with it absent-mindedly. She remembered the reason that he'd called her, and the fondness, warmth, protectiveness quickly turned into fury, contempt, venom. Kacchan wasn't even there, and he was still managing to make her Angel suffer. Himiko would just have to make him suffer infinitely more. She jabbed her knife into the air in front of her, imagining what it would be like to sink it into Kacchan's gut, and grinned. Izuku might not approve of it now, but she was sure that eventually he'd let her go after Explodey Boy. He probably still wouldn't let her kill him, but there were much better ways to make someone suffer. In the meantime, she'd have to teach Izuku how to defend himself. The thought of him holding one of her knives, beat up and splattered with his opponent's blood, made her shiver with excitement, glee, anticipation. Oh yes, she was definitely going to show him how to use a knife. With that thought in mind, Himiko grinned, and hid her knife back in her dresser. She'd suggest her idea tomorrow when they were getting rid of that horrible, dreadful, obnoxious hero stuff. Oh, this was gonna be so much fun. Himiko raised her hand and rapped on the door, letting out a happy, elated, excited squeal when it opened a few seconds later. "Izuku?" She launched herself at him, almost knocking them both to the ground. Izuku laughed, and it made her feel joyful, delighted, pleased to know she'd been the cause of it. "Is Inko here?" she asked as she let go of him. Izuku shook his head. "She had to work late today. It's just us." "Ah," Himiko pouted. "That's too bad." Izuku shrugged. "Yeah, but there's nothing we can do. Come on." He ripped it off the wall and tossed it into one of the bins. The look in his eyes had Himiko shivering. "Well," he asked, giving her a feral, wild, fierce grin. "Let's get to work." They had a lot of fun. From how aggressive he was, Himiko guessed Izuku was letting out a lot of repressed anger, frustration, malice. It was so cute. She told him so, and he blushed, stammering out an unintelligible reply. One of Himiko's favorite parts was when they both grabbed the top of the biggest All Might poster there and tore it down with one big pull. Then they tore it up into smaller pieces and deposited them in one of the boxes. Izuku had smirked in satisfaction, pleasure, appeasement, then whirled around and went right back at it. Her other favorite part was when she picked up one of the boxes and swept all of the figurines off the bookshelf. She had started tearing off the heads of the All Might ones when Izuku saw what she was doing and stopped to help. They couldn't get all of the heads off because some of them were really well made, but they'd still get to burn them, so it was fine. When they had finally finished, Izuku had flopped face first onto his bed. Himiko sat down next to him, and he shifted so he could look at her. His cheek was squished into the pillow. It was cute. "So," Himiko started. "Yeah? Do you want to learn how to use a knife?" Izuku blinked. Blinked again. Blinked a third time. Did he have something in his eye? "What? Do you want to learn how to use a knife?" Himiko repeated slowly. "You know, for self-defense purposes." Sure." "Great," she chirped. "I'll lend you some of my knives so I can start giving you lessons." "Okay, but, he chewed on his lip. "Where are we gonna train?" Himiko pressed a finger to her chin. "Maybe. Oh, there's a beach near my house, 𝗬𝗲𝗄𝗏 Beach. Heard of it?" "I think so." Izuku wrinkled his nose. "Isn't that the one that's basically an illegal junkyard?" "Yup," he frowned. "Why there?" "Because no one will see us, and it's the perfect place to burn your trash." Izuku barked out a laugh. "All right then, 𝗬𝗲𝗄𝗏 Beach it is. Maybe we could turn it into our secret hideout." His eyes glittered mischievously. Himiko giggled. "Yeah," she hopped to her feet. "I'll meet you there on Saturday, Kay? I gotta go. My parents'll be mad if I stay out much longer." "What time?" Izuku asked, getting up to follow her as she walked out. She reached the door and slipped her shoes on. "Noon," Izuku nodded. "Noon is good." "Okay, see you then." She squeezed him in a quick hug, then bounced out the door. "Bye, Himiko." Izuku closed out his latest coding lesson and opened a new tab, keyboard clicking as he typed in the website for the chat room. It had been a few days since he joined, but these people were already the best friends he'd ever had. Not that it was much of a contest. Green Bean is online. 𝗧𝗵𝗃123. And that's why you don't microwave a pickle. Green Bean. 𝗵𝗃𝗲 Green Bean. Wait, what 𝗧𝗵𝗲 Hey Greenie 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗏123. Yo Green Bean, what's up Nota Condiment? Hi Green Bean. Hang on, what's this about microwaving a pickle 𝗧𝗵𝗲𝗢? Empty microwaved a pickle Green Bean. Why 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗏123? Why not Green Bean? You know what? Fair 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗏123. Alright, subject change 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗏123. Has anyone seen the news about Stain's latest hit? 𝗧𝗧𝗏𝗢𝐢𝐳. Oh yeah, it was that bitch with the swords, right? 𝗧𝗧𝗏𝗢𝐳. Fucking a shining knight or some shit Green Bean. Wait, really? Nota Condiment. Yeah, apparently he was running a human trafficking ring on the side 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗏123. He's lucky Stain got to him before I did 𝗧𝗧𝗏𝗢𝐳. I bet the HPSC swept it under the rug like they always do. 𝗧𝗏𝗏𝗢𝗢𝗍. Protecting Japan my ass. They're just protecting their public image. Nota Condiment. 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗏 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 This is the third hero he's killed in Tokyo, right? 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗲 123. Yup, green bean. What does that mean? Note a condiment. We've picked up a pattern. He kills 4 heroes in each city, then moves on to the next one. 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝐿𝐴𝐵𝑒. So he'll be killing one more in Tokyo, green bean. Isn't that going to make it easier for him to get caught? 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗲 123. 𝗬𝗏. Green bean. If he kills 4 heroes in each city, then figure out what city he's in and which heroes typically patrol there. Then narrow it down by working out which heroes he would deem false. Get a hold of their patrol routes. Determine the most likely areas that Stain would attack. And you've got him. 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗲 123. Holy shit, that's really smart, 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝐿𝐴𝐵𝑒. Damn kid, that's good. Don't give the police that information. Green bean. Why not? Note a condiment. Because so far all he's killed are genuinely bad people who aren't deserving of the title hero, green bean. But he's still a villain, right? 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗲 123. He's doing what the government is too scared to. 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗲 123. They're covering up all of the crimes and wrongdoings, because they don't want the public finding out that not all heroes are upstanding citizens. 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗲 123. Stain's just opening people's eyes, 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝐿𝐴𝐵𝑒. Normally I'd say that he still shouldn't murder people, maybe just cripple them. But a lot of these heroes are absolute pieces of shit who deserve to rot in hell. 𝗵𝗃𝗲 is online. 𝗵𝗃𝗲. Ooh, are we talking about Stainy? Note a condiment. Oh great, green bean. 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗲 123. She has a crush on Stain, green bean. You never told me that Himi 𝗵𝗃𝗲. Sorry, Izu. It just never came up. 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗲 123. 𝗬𝗏𝗃𝗲 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 seen 𝗵𝗃𝗵𝗃𝗧𝗵𝗲. Aw, thanks Lax. You're cute too. Snorlax 𝐎𝐬𝐼𝐧𝐿. Note a condiment. Green isn't talking. 𝗵𝗃𝗵𝗵𝗧𝗵𝗲. You probably broke him. He's not used to compliments. 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗵𝗵𝗧 123. I don't think any of us are used to compliments. Note a condiment. True. Snorlax 𝐎𝐬𝐼𝐧𝐿. What depressing lives we live. 𝗵𝗃𝗄 stifled a groan and resisted the urge to slam her head against her desk. The teacher continued his lecture in that boring monotone drab voice of his, oblivious to her suffering. The boy next to her had fallen asleep 10 minutes ago. His cheek was squished against his desk, reminding her of Izuku 3 days ago, when half of his face had been smooshed into his pillow. She smiled at the thought and turned to look at the boy again. He wasn't as cute as Izuku. Finally, the bell rang. Himiko shoved her things into her bag, uncaring of the mess, and practically flew out the door. In her opinion, the distance between her classroom and the exit of the school was way too much. Maybe she should learn parkour so she could jump out of the window. Himiko? The familiar voice of one of her friends sounded from behind her. Himiko stopped in order to let her catch up. Himiko, Rika beamed as she slowed to a stop. Almost lost you. There. Why are you in such a hurry? Because I wanted to avoid talking to you. The answer rang through Himiko's mind, but she plastered on a smile, the normal likable fake one she'd rehearsed in the mirror daily, because her real smile was too creepy, disturbing, weird, and resisted the urge to grab a knife and run it through Rika's chest. The blood would have been so pretty. I just wanted to get away from that classroom as soon as possible. Himiko forced out the half-truth. Mr. Hirano is so boring. Ugh, I know, right? Rika grimaced. Who even let him be a teacher? It's impossible to learn anything when you're half asleep the whole time. Himiko nodded and made a noise of agreement. So, Rika continued, have any plans this weekend? Yup, Himiko chirped, relishing in Rika's eyes widened in surprise, confusion, curiosity. I'm meeting up with a friend. Really? Rika tried and failed to hide her disbelief. Who? Himiko shrugged. Someone I met a few weeks ago. Rika stayed silent, obviously waiting for her to elaborate. But Himiko said nothing. Rika sighed through her nose and switched topics. So how'd you do on the biology test? I'm pretty sure I bombed. Himiko said. Could have done better, but I think I passed. Rika huffed. I don't even know why we need bio anyways. Not like when I'm at my future job interview, they'll be like, please identify the different parts of a human skin cell. Himiko giggled. Yeah, that'd be pretty weird. Well, I gotta go, Rika sighed. My parents want me home early tonight for Dad's birthday dinner. I'll see you tomorrow, okay? Micham. They waved at each other as they split apart at the school's exit, going in opposite directions. Once Rika was out of sight, Himiko huffed and pulled out her phone. Himiko. Hi Angel. Whatcha doing? Angel. Hi Himiko. I just got home from school, and I'm working on one of my coding lessons. 𝗵𝗃. Ooh, really? How's it going? Angel. Great. It's actually pretty easy. 𝗵𝗃. Yay, Angel. Speaking of my coding lessons, I gotta go. About to take a time test. 𝗵𝗃. 𝗨. Really? Angel. Yeah, SRY. 𝗵𝗃. You'll be online in the chat later though, right? Angel. Definitely. 𝗵𝗃. Alright, I'll see you later then. Angel. Saya. 𝗵𝗃 sighed and pocketed her phone. Without Angel to talk to, the rest of her walk was going to be super dull, boring gray. She hummed a made-up tune and hopped on the cracks in the sidewalk. Maybe if she was lucky that old English superstition would come true and one of her parents' backs would break. She giggled at the thought. Step on a crack, break your mama's back. Step on a line, break your dad's spine. After what felt like forever, she was finally home. She waltzed through the door, just barely managing not to slam it behind her. Sadly, neither of her parents' backs were broken. Her mom was cooking dinner in the kitchen, and her dad was watching TV. She ignored them, they ignored her, and she headed straight for her room, just like every other day. 𝗵𝗃 shut her door behind her and hopped up on her bed, pulling out her laptop. She briefly considered shifting into 𝗧𝗏𝗏. But she didn't have a lock on her door, and even if she changed back before her parents saw, there'd still be a puddle of slime around her. Sighing, 𝗵𝗃 shook away the idea. She'd have to wait until she was alone to wear 𝗧𝗏𝗏's face. She opened up her computer and clicked onto the always open tab with the chat room. She'd been logged out because of inactivity, so she had to log back in. The 3 seconds that it took her to do so felt like the longest 3 seconds of her life. 𝗵𝗃 is online. 𝗵𝗃. 𝐒𝐩𝐢𝐳𝐿 case agent number 666. Hi 𝗵𝗃. 𝗧𝗵𝗃 123. Yo, wish up 𝐒𝐭𝐚𝐲. An octopus is a wet spider. Case agent number 666. 𝗧𝗵𝗃 123. Oh my gods, 𝐎𝐻IATUS. Why are you like this 𝐒𝐭𝐚𝐲? 𝗵𝗃. It's not like he's wrong, 𝗵𝗃. You are a he right now, right? 𝗒𝐭𝐚𝐲? Yep, 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏. All dead to me. 𝗧𝗵𝗃 123. Anyways, 𝗵, do you know where Green is? 𝗧𝗵𝗃 123. He's usually on RN, 𝗵𝗃. Oh, Izuku's taking some online coding lessons, RN. He'll be online soon. Case agent number 666. Ooh, coding? 𝗵𝗃. Yep. 𝗒𝐭𝐚𝐲. So Greeny's a hacker. 𝗵𝗃. Yes. But he technically hasn't hacked into anything, so also no 𝗧𝗵𝗃 123. Think I could convince him to change all of my grades to A's. Case agent number 666. Knowing Greeny, he'd offer to tutor you instead, 𝗧𝗵𝗃 123. I bet I could convince him, 𝗵𝗃. No, you couldn't. Case agent number 666. Circumflex. 𝗒𝐭𝐚𝐲. Circumflex 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏. Circumflex 𝗧𝗵𝗃 123. Wow, okay, good to know that none of you have any faith in my persuasion abilities. Case agent number 666. It's less about your ability to persuade him, and more about the fact his sheer level of purity wouldn't allow him to help you cheat. Green Bean is online. 𝗵𝗃 squealed when the notification that 𝗧𝗏𝗏 was online popped up. It had been forever since they had talked. Yes, half an hour did, in fact, count as forever. At least in 𝗵𝗃's mind it did. And besides, they hadn't actually seen each other since Sunday, and it was Thursday. 𝗵𝗃 was feeling extreme 𝗧𝗏𝗏 withdrawal. 𝗒𝐭𝐚𝐲. Oh hey Greeny, we were just talking about you, Green Bean. You were. 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏. All good things, I promise. 𝗧𝗵𝗃 123. Hey Greeny, do you think you could do me a favor? Green Bean. Sure. What do you need? Case agent number 666. He's not gonna do it. Green Bean. Do what? 𝗒𝐭𝐚𝐲. 𝗵𝗃 wants you to hack into their school's records and change all of his grades to A's. 𝗵𝗃. We all said you'd say no, Green Bean. Green Bean. I could tutor you instead. Awa. 𝗧𝗏𝗏 was so cute. He was funny that way. He wouldn't hack a school to give someone better grades, but he'd hack into the files of the HPSC to learn more about false heroes. It was one of the reasons 𝗵𝗃 loved him. And she did love him, despite the fact that most people would say it was too early for it to be anything but a crush. 𝗵𝗃 knew what a crush felt like, and this was not it. Case agent number 666. Called it 𝗒𝐭𝐚𝐲. 𝗨 with 𝗧𝗵𝗃 123. Got him at 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏. Green. 1. Empty. So Green Bean. I'm confused. 𝗵𝗃. 𝗧𝗏𝗏, I want you to never change. Stay just the way you are, Green Bean. Okay? Case agent number 666. Well, now that that's settled, y'all want to hear what my cat did today? 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏. Yes, 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗲 'Yes, 𝗵𝗃 Please, 𝐒𝐭𝐚𝐲. What hell has the gremlin unleashed upon the world, this time Greenbean? Don't call him a gremlin. He's baby. Chaos Agent number 666. My mom had left her knitting supplies on the table, and he knocked everything off. Then got so tangled in the yarn that we had to cut him out. In the end, he ruined 5 balls of yarn and a half-knitted scarf. Greenbean. Never mind, he's a gremlin. 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗲 F Snorlax use yawn. F 𝗵𝗃𝗫 F 𝗵𝗃. Izuku frowned as he looked over 𝗵𝗃's stance for what felt like the 100th time and shifted his body to copy her as best as he could. 𝗵𝗃 beamed. You're doing great, Izuku. Your form looks way better than when we started. It is, he made a face. It doesn't feel any better. It is. 𝗵𝗃 nodded so enthusiastically that Izuku worried she'd get whiplash. Now, hold your knife like this. She adjusted her grip on her knife, and Izuku mimicked her. And slash. Izuku studied her movements, drinking in every detail he could, and once again tried to replicate the action. She was right. He'd definitely improved since they'd started earlier. He was still nowhere near 𝗵𝗃's skill level, though. All right, 𝗵𝗃 proclaimed. I'm bored. Let's try something else now. Izuku knitted his brows. Like what? Close your eyes. 𝗵𝗃 put her hands over her eyes. And count to 5. Then, see if you can find me before I tag you. Frowning, Izuku walked over to his bag to place his borrowed knife on top, and did as 𝗵𝗃 said. He counted to 5, opened his eyes, and looked around. 𝗵𝗃 had vanished. Izuku turned in a slow circle, searching the sand for any footprints and listening carefully for any sudden sounds. And then a giggle came from behind him, and he just barely managed to stop himself from yelping. Izuku whipped around, eyes wide, and 𝗵𝗃 giggled again, gently poking his nose with her finger. Tag. Gotcha. How'd you do that? Izuku breathed out. That was so cool. It's easy, 𝗵𝗃 chirped. All you gotta do is hold your breath and clear your mind. Now let's go again. And so they went again. And again. And again. Izuku lost track after the 6th or 7th time 𝗵𝗃 scared the living daylights out of him. This time, when he got to 5, he kept his eyes closed and focused solely on what he could hear, which, right now, was nothing. He held in a sigh of frustration. Wait. He tensed at the sound of shuffling from behind him and spun on his foot, blindly reaching out. There was a yelp, and he opened his eyes to see 𝗵𝗃 with wide eyes as she stumbled forward and into Izuku, knocking them both down. 𝗵𝗃 landed on top of him. For a moment, all they could do was stare at each other. Izuku's gaze flicked from 𝗵𝗃's yellow eyes. Her normally slitted pupils now expanded into dark circles, down to her lips, which were parted in a small, startled O shape. Her tongue flitted out and ran across her mouth. He was suddenly very aware of her hands on his chest, and her legs tangled in his. Izuku's face grew so hot that he was sure it had set fire. He quickly but gently pushed 𝗵𝗃 off of him and scrambled back, babbling stuttered apologies. 𝗵𝗃 giggled and his mouth snapped shut. It's fine, Izuku, I don't care. I get in your personal space all the time. It's not like this is any different. Izuku had nothing to say to that. He continued to stare at her. She stood up with a smile and helped him to his feet. It's starting to get dark, so I think that's enough for today. Your house is closer, so I'll walk you there. Izuku nodded blankly, brain still screaming, and allowed her to hand him his bag while she returned her knives to whatever pocket dimension she always seemed to pull them from. They picked their way past the mounds of trash and junk until they finally reached the sidewalk where 𝗵𝗃 turned to him with a bright grin. Same time next week? She asked, and Izuku nodded in response. 𝗵𝗃 beamed. Great, I'll see you then. She bounced forward and wrapped him in a hug. Bye. She was 10 feet away before Izuku found his voice. Bye 𝗵𝗃. She looked back and waved, then continued skipping down the sidewalk. By the time he got home, Izuku was fairly sure his blush was gone. But he hurried to his room just in case, announcing to his mom that he was home and going to take a shower. If she said anything in reply, Izuku didn't hear it. He grabbed a fresh pair of underwear and some pajamas, managing to slow down just enough that he didn't slam any drawers, and made his way to the bathroom. He wasn't lying about the shower part. He was covered in sand, but he also needed a place away from his mother in order to get his raging hormones under control. He really hated being a teenager sometimes. As he stripped out of his clothes and stepped into the water, he wondered what would have happened had he not pushed 𝗵𝗃 off of him. Would she have stood up on her own and acted like nothing had happened? Would they have kept training? Would she have kissed him? Izuku's hands stilled from where they had been lathering up his hair. What would it be like to kiss 𝗵𝗃? She'd probably bite. He could imagine her nipping just hard enough to break the skin, then lapping up whatever blood welled up from the wound. A shiver went down his spine, and he shook his head quickly, trying to dispel the thought. He wasn't successful. Himiko flounced into her room, flopped onto her bed, and squealed into her pillow. Her heart felt like it was going to burst with exhilaration pleasure elation. She bit her lip and rolled onto her back, squeezing her pillow to her chest. She had seen the look on Izuchan's face. He was red as a tomato. Of course, it could have just been from embarrassment. But Himiko was skilled at reading people. Izuchan was at least mildly attracted to her. Probably a small crush, nothing like how Himiko felt for him. But still, Izuchan had a crush on her. She lifted her pillow to her face and squealed into it again. This was the most amazing, fantastic, wonderful she had felt in so long. And it was, as always, thanks to her darling angel. Summer break had started, meaning Katsuki had an entire month free of school, and he was taking full advantage of that. His usual scowl was in place as he stalked down the sidewalk, towel thrown over his shoulder. He didn't bother weaving through the crowd. People would move out of his way as soon as they made eye contact. The perks of having a resting bitch face. Katsuki silently thanked the soft breeze that would pick up every now and then, providing a much-needed break from the unrelenting summer sun. The weatherman had said it would be cloudy that day. But clearly the weatherman was a fucking dumbass since there wasn't a goddamn cloud in the sky. With the amount of sweat pouring off of him, Katsuki would be able to supply the entire fucking Japanese military with enough explosives to last a decade. He cursed the weatherman again and shoved his way past some dumbass businessman. The man grabbed his arm and was probably about to start spouting some bullshit about respecting your elders. But one rage-filled glare had the idiot sputtering an apology and scurrying in the other direction. Katsuki smirked and continued his walk home. A voice caught his attention, familiar and foreign at the same time. The tone and words didn't match the person that was saying them. When Katsuki finally caught sight of the source, a feeling of wrongness set in. Deku? Deku either didn't hear Katsuki or was purposefully ignoring him. Either way, it pissed him off. He was ordering ice cream from some dumbass-looking ice cream truck. The nerd handed a wad of cash to the dead-eyed employee and took his ice cream. Oi, Deku! Deku startled and glanced around until his gaze fell on Katsuki. His brows furrowed for a moment before his eyes widened and he smiled. The nerd's smile wasn't supposed to look like that. But when was the last time Katsuki had seen him smile? Kacchan, what are you doing here? Katsuki scowled. Walking home from the gym. What the fuck do you think, Deku? Something flashed through Deku's eyes, but it was quick enough that it could have been a trick of the light. His face transformed into that of the nervous weakling Katsuki knew so well. Sorry, Kacchan. That was a stupid question. Katsuki grunted in reply. So what the fuck are you doing around here? Jay just thought I'd go for a stroll, Deku chuckled timidly. It's a nice day out. Katsuki raised an eyebrow. It's fucking hot as hell outside and your house is a 25-minute walk away. I just thought a change of scenery would be nice. The nerd explained with a shrug. And the heat is what the ice cream is for. That drew Katsuki's attention to the ice cream Deku had bought. His eyes narrowed. What the fuck is that? Since when do you buy anything besides All Might flavored shit? Oh, it's pomegranate. I've been getting a All Might. A grimace flickered across his face. Ice cream for so long that I thought I'd try something else. Katsuki snorted disbelievingly. Right, sure. Like I'd believe something like that. The fuck is up with you, Deku? Deku's eyes narrowed slightly at the name. But he stayed silent, instead choosing to lick his ice cream. Katsuki's scowl grew deeper. Fucking answer me, Deku. You've been really fucking weird lately. There's nothing up with me, Kacchan. The statement was missing Deku's ever-present stutter. And even if there was, I don't see why it would be any of your business, Katsuki growled. The fuck did you say to me? Explosions popped off of Katsuki's palms. But the nerd didn't flinch like he usually did. Sure, he tensed and his eyes grew wide and fearful. But there was no trembling, no apologizing, no quickening of the breath. But was that really fear in his eyes? Or something else? Sorry, Kacchan, Katsuki huffed. Whatever. Stupid fucking Deku. Deku turned his attention back to his ice cream, pausing when his phone went off. Except that it couldn't have been Deku's phone, because that ringtone was wrong. Instead of All Might shouting, I am here, it was the sound of someone laughing. Katsuki frowned, positive that it was a laugh he should recognize. He'd heard it somewhere before, he knew it. But it must have been so long ago that the only thing left of the memory was a vague recollection. Deku grinned down at his phone, a grin Katsuki had never seen on him before pocketing it. Sorry, Kacchan, but I gotta run. See ya later. And then he was gone. Katsuki blinked, looking around. But it was as if Deku had vanished into thin air. He growled and stalked away, continuing on his route home. What the hell was going on with him? He'd almost seemed like a completely different person. Was this what Deku was usually like? Was the timid, stuttering wimp act just that, an act? Katsuki snarled. Deku was probably still somewhere nearby, thinking about his encounter with Katsuki and laughing. Deku was looking down on him. That quirkless fucker still thought he was better than Katsuki. Fine then, thought Katsuki. If Deku thinks he's better than me, I'll just have to do even more to prove him wrong when school starts up again. He smirked and shoved his hands into his pockets. He'd show Deku his place. With that settled, he pushed away the feeling of wrongness that was slithering down his spine. No way a quirkless weakling like Deku could actually be of any threat to Katsuki. Izuku had just finished typing up the last lines of code for his newest lesson when the doorbell rang, followed by rapid knocking. He grinned. Right on time. Izuku, Himiko's here, his mother called out. He heard her open the door to greet his friend and quickly submitted his assignment, standing up right as Himiko flew into his bedroom. Izuchan, she cheered, throwing herself at him and squeezing him into a hug, although arguments could be made that it was an attempt to suffocate him. Izuku smiled and hugged her back, then dragged her to his desk, where he'd already had an extra chair pulled up in preparation for her arrival. She plopped herself down and moved the laptop in between them. So, what do you want to do? Izuku chuckled. Didn't you come over so I could help you with your summer homework? Himiko pouted. Well, yeah, but I figured we should have some fun first. Homework first, Izuku said. Then fun. Fine, Himiko groaned dramatically, pulling out a stack of papers and notebooks from her backpack. So what are we starting with? Izuku hummed and thought. You said you were assigned an essay, right? Let's do that, since it'll take the longest, and the sooner you start the better it'll be when you finish. Himiko huffed and pouted, but separated her history materials from the rest of her things and pushed everything else to the floor. Izuku rolled his eyes with an affectionate smile and looked over the topic. An essay about the dangers of drug abuse? Huh. They could work with that. Himiko was better at this than most people would have thought. She knew how to describe things in a way that didn't make you feel like falling asleep after reading 2 sentences. She struggled with the organization aspect, but Izuku was able to help her make it sound less like a caffeine-induced ramble and more like a planned, well-thought-out article. After 45 minutes of working, Himiko declared she'd had enough and shoved all of her things into her bag. Izuku chucked fondly but obliged, closing out the tabs they'd been using. So, Himiko prompted. Do you got any new analyses you want to show off? Oh, Izuku perked up. I do. There's this underground hero I've started watching. His name's Eraserhead. Here, I've downloaded a few clips I found of him. He scrolled through the files on his laptop, choosing not to mention that the majority of these clips were from security cameras he'd hacked. Here, look at this. The video he had chosen showed Eraserhead taking down a trio of would-be assaulters, allowing a young teen and his friend to escape. Himiko watched with wide eyes. What's he doing? Why aren't they? Oh, can he cancel quirks? Yep, Izuku grinned, grabbing his latest analysis notebook and flipping to the Eraserhead page. He can cancel the quirk of anyone he looks at. When it's activated, his hair floats up. Izuku made a wavy motion with his hands, imitating Eraserhead's hair. And I'm pretty sure it turns off when he blinks. Oh, and see here at the end, he skipped to the end of the video, where Eraserhead had taken off his goggles and was squeezing something into his eyes. Those look like eye drops. With how long he has to go without blinking, I bet he has dry eye. Izuku had written all of this down, of course. He switched to a different part of the clip, one he had sketched out, which showed Eraserhead using his scarf as a weapon. I'm pretty sure it's called a capture weapon, he said, tapping his drawing with the eraser end of his pencil. It's like he's controlling it with his mind. Must have taken years of practice to figure out. But what happens if it gets caught on something? Himiko questioned, putting her finger to her chin. Wouldn't that hinder him? Yeah, but he's prepared for that. Izuku closed out the clip and opened up another one. Look at this one, right about? He skipped along the video until he found the part he was looking for and paused. Here, see, the villain has grabbed onto his scarf, and he can't get it free. So he has a knife in order to cut it. Of course, seeing as how the capture weapon has been able to undergo a lot of stuff without getting damaged, I bet that's a knife that was made specifically for cutting it in case of an emergency. And he can also use it as a backup weapon. Smart, huh? Himiko nodded eagerly. Do you have anything else? No, not really. Izuku shrugged. Like I said, he's an underground hero, so he's really secretive. I haven't been able to find much else on him, but I'm still looking. I'm trying to figure out whether he went to UA or not, cause if he did, then I can find a clip of him at the sports festival. Well, tell me when you find some more stuff, Kay? Of course, Izuku beamed, putting away his notebook and closing out the files on Eraserhead. So what have you been up to lately? She tapped her chin and thought. Oh, I ran into Kacchan the other day. He really is just like you described him. Oh, really? Izuku shifted in his chair, then frowned. Wait, how did you know it was Kacchan? I was wearing you and he called me Deku. You were what? Wearing you. Himiko seemed to deflate, looking down at her hands. You don't mind, do you? My skin felt all itchy, and you had already given me permission to drink your blood, so I didn't think you'd mind. But I can stop doing that if you don't like it. I'm really sorry, please don't be mad. Whoa, hey. Izuku placed his hands on top of Himiko's. She looked up at him, bottom lip trembling. It's okay, I don't mind. I was just a bit confused, is all. You can wear me anytime you like. Just as long as you don't do anything that would get me in trouble or embarrass me. Okay? Himiko nodded eagerly, immediately switching from her chair to his and wrapping him up in a tight hug. Thank you, Izuchan. Thank you so much. Izuku chose not to concentrate on the fact that she was now sitting in his lap and returned the hug. Of course, Himiko. Just ask next time, okay? Okay, she said, voice muffled from where she had buried her face in his shoulder. You're a great friend, you know that? Izuku smiled softly. Thanks, Himiko. 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗲 123 is online. 𝐒𝐭𝐚𝐲 is online. Lord of the Fries. Oh gods, what did you two do this time? Green bean. Wait, how do you know they did something? 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗲 123. Exactly what makes you think we've done anything? Note a condiment. Whenever the two of you get on at the same time, it means you did something. The underscore kraken. 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗲 what Z said 𝗬𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗲. That's fair, 𝗵𝗃𝗲. So what did you do? Chaos Agent number 666. Oh, this is gonna be good. 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗲 123. 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗲 123. We may have, the underscore kraken. You what the underscore kraken? Finish the sentence, you coward. Chaos Agent number 666. Come on, tell us 𝐒𝐭𝐴𝑧𝗮𝗏𝗃𝗲. We got banned from our local grocery store, Lord of the Fries. What? Note a condiment. Off you did. Chaos Agent number 666. 𝗲𝗲𝗏 the underscore kraken. Why am I not surprised? 𝗵𝗃𝗲𝗏. Ahahahahahahahahaha. Green bean. Wah, green bean. How, Lord of the Fries? Please tell me you weren't racing shopping carts down the aisles. 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗲 123. Of course not, Lord of the Fries. Then what were you doing? 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗲 123. I sat in a cart screaming while Void pushed me down the aisles. Chaos Agent number 666. Why was I not invited? 𝗵𝗃𝗲𝗏. Did you run someone over? 𝗬𝗧𝗮𝗏𝗃𝗲. Sadly, no, green bean. How is what you said different from what Fries said? Note a condiment. It's not 𝗬𝗧𝗮𝗏𝗃𝗲. Actually, it is Lord of the Fries. Explain how it's different. The underscore kraken. Yes, please enlighten us. Chaos Agent number 666. Enlighten the underscore kraken. You know what I fucking meant. 𝗬𝗧𝗮𝗏𝗃𝗲. Anyways, 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗲 123. You see, Fries used the word racing. 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗲 123. Racing implies that we were competing with someone. But seeing as how Void and I were the only two in the store who were participating in this activity, there is no one we could have been competing with. 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗲 123. Therefore, we were not, in fact, racing. Lord of the Fries. I am going to strangle you. 𝗬𝗧𝗮𝗏𝗃𝗲. Shit. Chaos Agent number 666. Run, green bean. Rip empty and Void. 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗲 123. Wait, no please, I still have so much to live for. Lord of the Fries. Too late, Lord of the Fries. Green, I need their location. 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗲 123. Please, there's so many people I haven't pranked yet. 𝗵𝗃𝗲𝗏. You will be remembered fondly. Green bean. What makes you think I can find their location? Chaos Agent number 666. Hacking. The underscore kraken. See you in hell. Note a condiment. Say hi to Satan for me. Green bean. Sorry, but I'm not gonna hack their accounts. Green bean. Hack asterisk 𝗵𝗃𝗲𝗏. Alwawa Simon Izu, it'll be fool on green bean. No 𝗵𝗃𝗲𝗏. 𝗬𝗧𝗮𝗏𝗃𝗲𝗏. Ah, now look what you did. You made her sad. Green bean. I am not going to assist in murdering anyone. 𝗵𝗃𝗲𝗏. Yet green bean. What 𝗬𝗧𝗮𝗏𝗃𝗲𝗏. Knife, stop corrupting him. 𝗵𝗃𝗲𝗏. No fun. 𝗬𝗏𝗏𝗃𝗲 is online. Note a condiment. Shit. Chaos Agent number 666. Nugs no 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗲𝗏 123. Yes, Nugs, what knowledge do you have to share with us today? The underscore kraken. Nugs, please don't 𝗵𝗃𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 𝐒𝐭𝐚𝐲 𝐔𝐸𝐄𝐻 Noda condiment. Shit green bean. 𝗬𝗏𝗵𝗃 123. Nugs has once again blessed us with their wisdom. I am eternally grateful _Kraken. That's it, I'm leaving _Kraken. Goodbye knife to meet you. 𝗬𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗏 let's try it out knife to meet you. But like. With a knife green bean. But that's wasting a perfectly good knife. Knife to meet you. True lord of the flies. Nugs, why do you do this 𝐒𝐭𝐴𝐳𝐻? 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏 is online. Knife to meet you. 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏. 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏. What's up fuckers? Green bean. Hi lax. Chaos agent number 666. Yo wish up 𝗬𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗏. Lax, whatever you do not scroll up 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗏. I see Nugs got here before me 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗏. I will not ask _Kraken. That's probably for the best 𝗧𝗏𝗵𝗃 123. No fun 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗏. It is too early for me to have an existential crisis. Green bean. It's 6 p.m. 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗏. Exactly 𝗬𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗵𝗃. You know what, that's fair 𝗒𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏. Hey, didn't you have like a big test today or some shit, Lord of the Flies? Oh yeah, how did that go 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗏? Not good green bean. No, I'm sure you did great. 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗏𝗏. I stayed up all night studying, yawned once during the test, and put half the class plus the teacher to sleep 𝗧𝗏𝗵𝗃 123. Oh damn. Green bean. Oh yay, that's not good 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗏𝗏. Yeah, you think Lord of the Flies. So what happened afterwards? Did they give you another chance or something? 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗏𝗏. Yeah, they're letting the entire class retest, but they're putting me in a separate room 𝗒𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏. Well, that's lucky, at least green bean. I gotta go, my mom's calling me green bean. Good luck with your test, lax. Talk to y'all later. Knife to meet you. Bye Izu. 𝗧𝗏𝗵𝗃 123. Bye Noda condiment. Saya 𝗬𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗵𝗃. Adios green bean is offline. Inko hummed as she scrubbed a plate, smiling at the laughter she could hear coming from her son's room. She was glad Izuku had finally found a friend. She wasn't blind. She knew that things had been tough for him recently at school. She had tried going to the principal about it, but he had just waved her away, claiming that kids will be kids, and if he can't handle a little fooling around, then how could he handle real life? Inko scowled at the memory. What she wouldn't give for her baby to have a quirk. Not that being quirkless made her love him any less, but she knew life would be easier for the both of them had he developed even a weaker version of her or Hisashi's quirks. Himiko trotted out of Izuku's room, Izuku following close behind. Oh, are you leaving already? Inko asked, setting the plate aside and drying her hands on her apron. Yeah, my parents said I had to be home by dark, Himiko chirped. She paused by the door and gave a wide grin. I'll see you tomorrow, though, okay? See you tomorrow, sweetie. Have a nice evening. Be safe on the way home. Himiko nodded, hugged Izuku goodbye, then hopped out the door. Izuku watched her leave with a look on his face that Inko knew all too well. She smiled knowingly as her son turned back to her. So how was your day, Izuku? It was great, Izuku beamed, bouncing in place. Himiko helped me go over some of my notes for this new hero, Doodlebug. Basically, her quirk is that she can make drawings come to life. There was this one clip where she was tracking down a thief with an invisibility quirk. So she used some graffiti of a wolf to make an actual wolf and had it sniff out where he was. She's super creative. I don't think many other heroes would have thought of using street art. That's very cool, sugar, Inko smiled. So you and Himiko had a lot of fun then? Mom, Izuku stammered, ears red. Not like that. Inko turned back to the dishes, eyes glittering in a way that had Izuku power walking to his room with a stammered excuse of summer homework. She let out an amused huff and picked up the plate she'd been washing, resuming her humming. Really, the changes in Izuku ever since he had met Himiko were amazing. Having someone besides his mother who didn't care about his quirklessness, someone his own age, no less, was something Inko had wanted for her son since he was little. And Himiko was such a sweet girl, too, even if she was a little too obsessed with blood for Inko's liking. Still, what could you expect from someone with a quirk like hers? Not that Inko was prejudiced or anything. She knew that some quirks came with certain oddities. Himiko's just happened to give her a certain craving for blood, one that she knew Izuku was helping her with even if he did try to hide it. If Izuku had anyone besides Inko and Himiko, perhaps she would have tried to subtly steer him away from the girl, but with Izuku's condition, well, it's not like he would be finding any other friends anytime soon, especially not with how the kids at school were treating him. Inko wondered how things would have been had Katsuki stuck by Izuku's side like he'd promised as a child. Izuku still wouldn't be able to be a hero. Inko was sure of that. But maybe his life so far would have been better. But Katsuki hadn't stayed loyal, and there was no changing that, so it was useless to dwell on it. And so, even while their relationship was certainly not ordinary, Inko could do nothing but encourage Izuku and Himiko's friendship. Besides, it was clear that Izuku had feelings for the girl, even if he hadn't realized it yet. She hoped Himiko wouldn't let him down like all his other crushes had. There had been one girl he'd liked, Haruka, who hadn't really accepted Izuku's quirklessness, just ignored it like one would ignore an unpleasant habit. But she had quickly learned that being around Izuku meant having a target on your back, and she dropped him after 2 weeks. Izuku had been heartbroken, so Inko had called in sick that weekend, and they'd spent the entire time eating ice cream and katsudon and watching All Might movies. Himiko was already better than Haruka in multiple ways. She'd embraced Izuku's disability, stuck with him for almost 4 months now, and she didn't go to Aldera, so there was no chance of her being bullied out of her friendship with him. Inko had hopes that maybe they could grow to be something more for each other. But even if they only remained friends, Inko would be happy. She paused, wondering what it said about her that she, a devoted mother, was happy that her son had one friend. That was not something most mothers would be happy about. And yet Inko couldn't stop smiling. She figured that with Izuku as a son, she wasn't like most mothers. That was fine with her. Katsuki growled as he stalked down the sidewalk, kicking a pebble out of his way. That's what Deku was supposed to be, a tiny pebble on Katsuki's path to glory. But recently, the fucking nerd had gotten it into his head that he was actually more than just a quirkless nobody. Katsuki was going to find that little piece of shit and tear him apart. It didn't take long to find him. Despite not having been his friend for a good 10 years, Katsuki still knew practically everything about him. Not like he had anything to hide, anyway. Katsuki grinned when he finally spotted Deku on his way home from the library, clutching what Katsuki assumed was some hero's autobiography or some shit. Deku was into that kind of crap. Oi, fucking Deku. Deku jumped and turned, eyes narrowing when he saw Katsuki. What is it, Kacchan? Katsuki was momentarily stunned by the lack of whimpering or trembling, but he shook it off with a growl. You've been really fucking weird lately. What, did you finally give up on that hopeless fucking dream of yours? For your information, that dream wasn't hopeless. But yes, I did give it up, as you put it. Satisfied? Katsuki scowled and stalked forward until he was inches away from Deku, explosions popping off his palms. The fuck is up with that tone? You think you're better than me or something? Huh? A quirkless weakling like you. Deku stiffened, eyes taking on a gleam that Katsuki had never seen in them before. I'm not claiming to be better than you. But you are definitely not better than me, or anyone else for that matter, he hissed, leaning forward. And I am not weak. Katsuki snarled and grabbed the front of Deku's shirt, pulling him forward so forcefully that he dropped his book. The fuck did you just say to me, you useless piece of trash? Do I need to remind you exactly how worthless you are? Let me go, Deku said quietly, eyes cold. It sent a shiver down Katsuki's spine, but he didn't move. He tightened his hold on Deku's shirt. Not until you remember your fucking place. He tossed Deku to the ground and aimed a small explosion at him. But the quirkless weakling rolled out of the way and launched himself at Katsuki. Katsuki suddenly found himself on his back, with Deku on top of him, arms pinned to his sides by Deku's knees, and a knife under his throat. Izuku resisted the urge to smile. He shouldn't smile while holding a knife to someone's throat. Even if that someone was Kacchan. He could hear the way Kacchan's breath had sped up, feel the way Kacchan had tensed up under him. It reminded him of when Kacchan had been held captive by the sludge villain. But this was different. Better. The fear in Kacchan's eyes wasn't caused by some random villain. It was caused by Izuku. The thought that Izuku could have this effect on Kacchan made him giddy. He slowly moved the knife to Kacchan's cheek and cut a thin line, observing the blood well up and dribble down his face. Himiko would have loved this. Thinking of Himiko made him wish she were here with him, watching as he made Kacchan bleed. As he made him suffer. I told you I wasn't weak, Izuku said softly, wiping away the blood and watching as more soon took its place. So don't ever call me that again. Don't call me useless. Don't call me worthless. Don't call me trash. Don't call me Deku. The last word was spat out like it was a rotten piece of fruit. He leaned down so his mouth was right next to Kacchan's ear, pressing the knife so it left another cut on his cheek. Got it, Kacchan nodded, apparently too shocked to say anything, and Izuku slowly, reluctantly, moved the knife away from his face. He stood up and stepped away, slipping the knife back into its sheath, and watched as Kacchan pushed himself to his feet, shaking. They locked eyes, and for a few seconds, both of them were still. Silent. Kacchan was the first to look away. He stuffed his hands into his pockets and stalked away, trying and failing to look like he still had his pride intact. Izuku wrinkled his nose and rolled his eyes, staring until Kacchan had turned a corner and was out of sight, before pulling out his phone and picking up his book. He clicked on 𝗵𝗃𝗻's name and put the phone up to his ear, grinning when she picked up almost immediately. Izuku, hi, what's up? Hi, 𝗵𝗃𝗻, I just had a run-in with Kacchan. Oh my gosh, really? You're okay, right? Did you use your knife? Izuku giggled. I'm perfectly fine, 𝗵𝗃𝗻. And yes, I did use my knife. He looked. He smiled and closed his eyes, recalling the image of Kacchan helpless underneath him, eyes filled with nothing but fear. He looked terrified. It was amazing. Aw, I wish I had been there to see it. Izuku could perfectly imagine the pout on 𝗵𝗃𝗻's face. I bet you looked so cute. Please tell me you at least cut him a little bit. Of course, Izuku replied. I wonder how he's going to explain it to Auntie Mitsuki. I doubt he'll want to admit that I did that to him. Oh, I'm so proud of you, Izuku. I'm glad your training's paid off. Me too. Izuku hugged his book closer to his chest. Thanks so much for helping me, 𝗵𝗃𝗻. I couldn't have done that without you. Aw, you don't have to thank me, Izuku. It was really no problem. Honestly, it was fun doing all of that with you. Still, thank you, Izuku smiled. 𝗵𝗃𝗻, he froze. Izuku, what's wrong? Sirens. Screaming. Smoke. All coming from the direction of his apartment building. Izuku ran. Some part of him absently registered that his phone was still on, 𝗵𝗃𝗻's voice filtering through the speakers, so he hung up and slipped it into his pocket. He kept running. He skidded to a stop when he caught sight of the apartment complex. The blaze was massive. It had already engulfed 2 of the buildings and was reaching towards a third. Izuku's apartment was in one of those 2 buildings. Mom. Izuku ran forward and pushed through the crowd of spectators, elbowing and shoving his way to the front, where a line of police officers was keeping them from moving any closer. Please, I need to get through. That's my house. My mom is up there. Please, let me surrender. Villain scum. Izuku's head whipped towards the shout, where some hero he vaguely recognized as a sidekick from the Endeavor Agency was facing off against a villain. They shot off a flame that just barely missed the criminal and lit a bush alight. The firefighters quickly extinguished it. No. No. His mom was not going to die just because some stupid, idiotic, careless fucking hero couldn't do their job right. Izuku turned back towards the crowd and began weaving through it, searching for a familiar face. Mom, please, Mr. Kuhaku. He clutched at the man's elbow, eyes desperate and pleading. Mr. Kuhaku, please, do you know where my mom is? Kuhaku shook his head. I was out getting groceries when I came back and saw this. Think I saw Inko on my way out, but I don't know if she was leaving or coming back. Izuku didn't bother to reply. He moved past him, questioning onlookers, frantically searching, until no. Oh gods, please, no. Laying on a stretcher, skin stained with ash and angry red burns, hair practically incinerated, was the unmistakable form of his mother. Mom. His voice came out cracked and scared, like a toddler who'd just had a nightmare. Mom, he stumbled forward, as close as he could before a police officer stopped him. I'm sorry, young man, but you can't go any further. Please remain where you are, please, Izuku pleaded, futilely shoving at the officer's arms. Please, that's my mom. I have to see her. I have to see if, kid, I'm sorry, but if she's in that bad of a state, she's dead, the officer said after a 2-second glance at Izuku's mother. If it's any comfort, she most likely died of smoke inhalation before most of the flames reached her, so she didn't suffer. She's dead. The words rang through Izuku's head, over and over, growing louder the longer he stared at his mom's corpse body. One of the medics pressed 2 fingers to her forehead, a diagnostic quirk, then shook their head and stepped backward. A few seconds later, a white sheet was laid on top of her, and the medics moved on. She's dead. She's dead. She's dead. She's dead. She's dead. She's dead. A broken sob tore its way out of Izuku's throat as he stumbled backward, then turned heel and ran. A few people tried to stop him, asking if he was okay. Obviously he wasn't. But he shook them all off and kept running. He ran and ran and ran, eyes blurry and swimming, throat so choked he felt like he was drowning. And then he tripped. He remembered 𝗵𝗃𝗻 teaching him how to fall correctly, how to roll upright and keep going. But he couldn't even find the energy to try to catch himself with his hands. He curled up in a ball on the empty sidewalk, hugging his knees to his chest. He could have been there for 5 minutes or 5 hours, tears falling from his cheeks and splattering the sidewalk below him. Someone placed their hand on his arm. Izuku? As soon as Izuku had hung up, Himiko felt a rush of panic, worry, distress. Opened the tracking app they'd both installed and pinpointed the little blue dot on her screen that indicated Izuku's location. She flew out of the house without a word to her parents and ran. Himiko finally found Izuku almost a mile away from his apartment, on the ground, shoulders shaking as he cried. She raced over and placed a hand on his shoulder. Izuku. Izuku looked up, eyes swimming with tears and filled with so much sorrow, grief, defeat that Himiko's heart broke. She wanted to stab whatever had made her angel feel like this. Oh, Izuku. She fell to her knees and pulled him into her arms, resting his head in the crook of her neck. Shh, it's okay, Angel, I'm here. Himiko ran her fingers through Izuku's hair, untangling the curls as gently as she could. What happened, Izu? Izuku shook his head and pressed harder into her embrace, clutching her shirt like a lifeline. Himiko. His voice sounded so broken, hopeless, lost. She squeezed him tighter as if she could chase away the sadness by the pure force of her will. She's gone, he whispered, so quietly that if he hadn't been this close, Himiko doubted she would have heard him at all. They said, he choked on the words. They said she was. Another wave of sobbing made him break off. But Himiko could guess what he was trying to say. She could do nothing but hold Izuku close and whisper condolences in his ear. She wished it was enough. Oh God, how she wished this was all it would take to make his pain go away. But Izuku kept crying, so Himiko kept holding him. Oi, the fuck are you kids doing in the middle of the sidewalk? Get out of the fucking way. Himiko sent an angry, protective, furious glare at the man, who snorted and walked around them, lightly shoving Izuku as he passed. She wanted to stab him. But Izuku was more important. Come on, Angel, she whispered. Let's find somewhere better to sit, okay? Izuku didn't respond. But then again, Himiko didn't expect him to. She helped him to his feet and led him down the sidewalk, looking for somewhere they wouldn't be disturbed. Well, she thought as they came upon a relatively clean alley. This looks good enough. She sat them behind a large dumpster, out of sight of anyone on the sidewalk. Izuku still hadn't spoken a word. Himiko held him tighter. Himiko, he whispered eventually, when his trembling had lessened and his grip on her shirt had loosened. What am I gonna do? I don't know, Izuku, Himiko replied quietly. But I'm not gonna let go. And she didn't let go. Even when her limbs grew stiff, even when the sun sank below the horizon, even when Izuku fell asleep, cheeks still wet with tears, Himiko did not let go. Himiko awoke to crying. She opened her eyes slowly, taking a moment to take in her surroundings before her brain fully registered Izuku crying into her shoulder. Izuku, she whispered, running her fingers through his green curls. Shh, it's all right, I'm here. Sorry, Izuku hiccuped, looking up at her with watery green eyes that filled Himiko with rage, protectiveness, heartbreak. I didn't mean to wake you. No, it's okay, Angel, she soothed. I'm glad you did. I don't want you to go through this alone. Izuku sniffled and buried his head in her shoulder, shoulders shaking with silent sobs. The tears that didn't end up soaking her shirt, Himiko wiped away, until she was gently caressing his cheek. She pressed a kiss to his forehead and continued soothing him until, after who knew how long, he let out one last broken, quiet, shuddering breath and was still. That's it, Izuku, everything's okay. I've got you, remember? And I'm never, ever letting go. Never, she promised herself. Even if she were dying and letting go would save her life, she would never leave her angel. And she would kill anyone who tried to make her. Himiko, Izuku drew her out of her head with just a whisper. You gotta go back home. Her grip on him tightened. And what about you? He cut off, as if he were only then realizing he should worry about himself. I guess I'll have to go to the police. Mo, his lips pressed into a thin line. Auntie Mitsuki is my godmother. They'll send me to live with her. Auntie Mitsuki, Himiko's eyes widened, then narrowed. Kacchan's mother. They'll send you to live with him. She spat. Izuku nodded absently. No, absolutely not. I will not let them send you to that stupid, sorry fucking excuse for a human being. But I can't stay with you, Izuku's bottom lip trembled. Your parents would never allow it. Then we'll run away, Himiko huffed. We'll run away together, and we'll never let them catch us. Himiko, Izuku sputtered. You can't. I can't. I can't ask you to leave your home for me. Please, that place is hardly a home, she snorted. And you're not asking me, I'm telling you. You're obviously not gonna live with them, and I'm not letting you stay on the streets on your own. So I'm coming with you, and that's final. 𝗵𝗃, Izuku choked on a sob and Himiko hugged him close to her chest. Thank you, he whispered into her neck. Always, Izuku. Always. It was 𝗵𝗃 who had suggested it. My parents aren't going to be home from work for hours, she'd said as she pulled Izuku to his feet. We can go and grab whatever we need and be gone before they get there. Izuku had nodded silently, content to let 𝗵𝗃 do the thinking, for now, his brain still numb with shock and grief. When they were slipping in through 𝗵𝗃's bedroom window, it occurred to Izuku that this would be the first time he'd ever been to 𝗵𝗃's house, and yet she practically lived at his. Or she used to, at least. He stopped that train of thought immediately and watched 𝗵𝗃 dump everything from her backpack onto the floor, giving it a few shakes to make sure everything was out. Here. She tossed the bag in Izuku's direction, and he caught it clumsily. I think my parents have a duffel bag in their room. We can fill my backpack with clothes and put the food in the duffel bag. She tapped her chin in thought. I'll grab the first aid kit from the bathroom, too. And some of our extra blankets. Don't think we'll be able to take pillows, though. They'd take up too much space. Izuku nodded. 𝗵𝗃 frowned and padded over to him, gently taking the bag from him and placing it on her bed. What's wrong, Izuku? Izuku shook his head. It's fine. I'm fine. 𝗵𝗃 frowned, obviously disbelieving, but she didn't push. Instead, she squeezed Izuku's hand, then grabbed the backpack and pulled him over to the closet. Come on, help me choose some clothes. I might have some sweatshirts that'll fit you. Izuku silently helped her pick and choose outfits, guiding her towards clothes that were more comfortable than stylish. She'd pouted when Izuku didn't allow her to pack her favorite shirt, a blood red one with ruffles on the sleeves, but got over it after Izuku grabbed a pink hoodie with cat ears. 𝗵𝗃 grabbed 3 large jackets and 2 shirts that she claimed he'd be able to fit into, then went to stuff everything in the bag. But Izuku stopped her and folded it all neatly so it wouldn't get wrinkled. Once 𝗵𝗃 was satisfied, they took the first aid kit from the bathroom, then moved to the kitchen. 𝗵𝗃 grabbed the duffel bag from her parents' room and started stuffing it with water bottles and snacks. 𝗵𝗃? Yeah, Izuku? When Izuku didn't respond, 𝗵𝗃 looked over at him, frowning. She must have seen something in his expression, because she immediately set down the bag and padded over to him, cupping his cheeks with her hands. Izuku realized he was crying. What is it, Angel? She asked quietly. Why are you doing this? 𝗵𝗃 tilted her head to the side, confused, and Izuku elaborated. Why are you leaving? Why you could stay here, sleep in a warm bed, not have to worry about food or anything. Why are you giving all of that up? I'm just me. Oh, Angel. She tilted his head so he was looking her in the eye. That's exactly why I'm coming. Because you're you. Because you're Izuku, my angel, and I care so much about you. There's no one else I would rather be with. I'm going to stay with you. Always. Izuku couldn't speak, but even if he had been able to, he wouldn't have been able to think of a thing to say. Because there was no way this was real. Why would anyone, especially someone as amazing as 𝗵𝗃, care so much about Izuku? Care enough to leave behind everything just to stay with him? His disbelief must have shown because 𝗵𝗃 frowned. Here, she whispered. Let me show you. And then she tilted her head up and gently pressed her lips to his. Izuku froze at first, and 𝗵𝗃 drew away with a flash of anxiety, panic, guilt, thinking she had made a mistake. But Izuku chased after her. She giggled and moved her hand to the nape of his neck, pulling him in for another kiss. This time, Izuku's eyes fluttered shut, arms wrapping around her waist. 𝗵𝗃 licked at his mouth until it parted, allowing her tongue to slip in. She nibbled at his lips, drawing a whimper from him. She paused. But when he made no move to stop her, she took it as encouragement to bite down harder. His blood smeared across both of their mouths, and 𝗵𝗃 happily greedily licked at it like an overexcited puppy. The metallic taste of his blood coated her tongue, sending a shiver down her spine. Izuku was clumsy, nervous, inexperienced, but that wasn't his fault. The only reason 𝗵𝗃 knew what she was doing was because she and her various friends had practiced on each other multiple times, so they'd be ready when the time came to kiss a boy well. Her friends wanted to kiss boys. 𝗵𝗃 didn't really care what gender they were. 𝗵𝗃 had disliked it at the time. She'd only done it to fit in. But now, she was grateful for the chance to show her angel how it was done. They parted for air, both panting and staring at each other like they were the only things that existed anymore. 𝗵𝗃 felt a surge of warmth, bliss, protectiveness, and grinned. Izuku's eyes were devoid of any of the sadness, grief, despondence that had been there earlier, now only focused on 𝗵𝗃. She leaned up and kissed him again. his contented, satisfied, pleased sigh confirming what she already knew. Izuku was hers and hers alone. No one would ever take him away now. Mine, 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 mine. Her mind chanted as her tongue ran across his lips, collecting the fresh blood. Izuku, my angel, mine. Later, when they were settled on a park bench and snacking on Cheez-Its, Himiko rested her head on Izuku's shoulder. Izuku smiled, warmth bubbling up in his chest. Hey, Himiko. Himiko hummed in reply. Thank you. Himiko turned her head and blinked up at him. You don't gotta thank me, Izuku. I'd hate myself if I didn't come with you. It's like I told you, I'm never leaving you, never. She leaned up and pressed a light kiss to his lips. Although it was nothing like the last kiss they'd shared, it still sent a small thrill through Izuku. Himiko smiled and pulled away, pushing herself to her feet. Come on, let's go. We still gotta find somewhere to sleep tonight. Right. Izuku nodded, tossing his empty bag of cheese, it's in a nearby trash can, and pulling his bag back on. So, where should we go? Himiko tapped her chin and started walking in a random direction. Izuku trotted after her. We could find another alleyway. I guess, Izuku mumbled. I just wouldn't feel safe. Himiko snorted. I doubt anywhere is going to be safe for two runaways living on the streets. True, Izuku sighed. Still, could we try to find somewhere a little more secluded? Himiko bit her lip in thought. Ooh. Oh, Izuku lit up. What about the beach? There's a ton of old junk there. I bet we could find a sheltered spot. That's a great idea, Izuku, Himiko beamed. Let's go. They changed directions and headed towards the beach, which, unluckily for them, was about a 45-minute walk from where they were. About 23 minutes into the walk, he and Himiko were discussing something or other. Izuku wasn't really paying attention when he spotted his former favorite store, the one where he would always go to buy hero merch. That's where Mom bought me my first journal. Izuku froze in place, eyes locked on the storefront. Why was his vision getting blurry? Himiko wiped his face and he was crying. Izuku pressed his fist to his mouth, muffling a sob, and Himiko pulled him forward into a hug. He collapsed against her and let out another sob, shoulders shaking. Is he okay, sweetie? A voice asked. Izuku didn't turn to look, but Himiko's hold on him tightened. He's fine, she practically growled. Leave us alone. There was the sound of footsteps retreating quickly, and then they were alone again. SHH, Izuku, Himiko whispered. I need you to calm down, okay? We're almost to the beach, and then we can find a nice spot to sleep, okay? But right now it's getting dark, and we don't want to get caught out at night. It won't be safe for us to be walking around at night. Izuku nodded and sniffled, pulling away from her. She wrapped an arm around his waist and guided him down the sidewalk. They were at the beach before he knew it. He helped Himiko stack various box-shaped items into a pseudo-wall a few feet away from a small heap of trash, before they closed off one of the entrances and stuck a raggedy tarp over it to act as a ceiling. It was crude, and the tarp was full of holes, but it was good enough for them. Himiko laid a blanket on the ground, and they curled up together, not bothering to cover themselves in another blanket because of how warm it was outside. Izuku finally allowed himself to break down. Himiko hugged him to her chest and whispered quiet reassurances in his ear, running her fingers through his hair. It was the second night in a row that Izuku fell asleep crying. Dabi wasn't entirely sure how he'd ended up in this situation. One moment, he's looking for a place to smoke, and the next he's defending two kids from some asshole that was threatening them. The dude scrambled away with his tail between his legs literally, since he had some sort of mutant quirk, and Dabi turned to face the teens, one of whom was holding a pair of knives and looked ready to throw one at him. Thank you, the other one stammered. He had a knife too, but he was hiding behind the girl, who was staring at Dabi like she wanted to gut him. Dabi took a few steps back. Yeah, no problem, kid. If you don't mind me asking, the hell are you two doing out here? This is the seediest part of town, and it's almost dark. We didn't need your help, the girl growled, moving so she was shielding the boy even more. The boy peeked out from behind her. Right, of course, you didn't. That dude looked like he was about to eat you alive. I had it handled. The girl didn't seem likely to back off anytime soon, so Dabi dropped the subject. You didn't answer my question. What are two kids like you doing out here so late? None of your business, the girl scowled. The boy eyed Dabi distrustfully and grabbed the hem of the girl's shirt, probably for reassurance. Dabi realized something. Fuck, he groaned. You two are runaways, aren't you? Their silence told him enough. Dabi sighed, stared up at the sky, muttered a few curses under his breath. then turned to look back at the kids. Fuck. Of all people, why did it have to be him that came across these two? Got him it, he groaned again. Come on, you two, let's go. Why should we go with you? The girl questioned, eyes narrowed. Yeah, the boy agreed. We don't even know your name. Dabi, he grunted. And seeing as how it's almost dark, and I saved you from possible death or assault, I'd say you can trust me. Or you could stay out here and take your chances. Might not be so lucky next time, though. He gave them a few moments to consider their options, then turned and began stalking out of the alley. After a quick whispered argument, he heard 2 sets of footsteps following behind him. So, what are your names? Dabi asked, glancing behind him. My Midoriya Izuku. Dabi almost didn't hear the kid. He was so quiet. Toga Himiko. The girl was louder, more confident. She was walking in between Dabi and Midoriya, arm reaching back so she could hold the boy's hand. So, Midoriya said after a few minutes of silence. Where exactly do you live? An apartment building, Dabi replied. It was abandoned after the owner went crazy and went on a killing spree. On second thought, maybe it wasn't a good idea to tell the kids about that part. They would have found out eventually, though, what with the bloodstains and all. Ooh, that's so cool. Toga gasped. There's bloodstain, right? Please tell me there's bloodstains. Or maybe it was a good idea. Yeah, there's bloodstains, Dabi replied. Toga squealed. Dabi was starting to have doubts about his latest decision. Too late to go back now, he reasoned. So, he drawled once the silence had stretched long enough that it was starting to get awkward. How long have you two been on the streets? We don't have to. A bit over a week, Midoriya interrupted Toga, then flushed. Sorry, Himiko. I didn't mean to talk over you. It's fine, Izuku, she responded, and although Dabi couldn't see her, he could imagine her smiling. Luckily, Dabi was saved from having to come up with anything else to say, since they had just come up on the apartment building. He strolled into an alleyway next to it, pulled down the ladder for the fire escape, and started climbing up. When he reached the first flight and saw that the kids hadn't followed him, he raised an eyebrow. You two coming or what? Midoriya moved to the ladder, but Toga nudged him back so she could go up first. She obviously still didn't trust Dabi, which, honestly, was fair. A quick 2-minute climb up the stairs later and Dabi crawling through the missing window of his borrowed apartment, the 2 teens following cautiously. Home sweet home, Dabi announced, flopping down on the couch. He shifted to watch Toga and Midoriya, who were standing by the window, taking everything in. The apartment wasn't much, but you couldn't have much when you were homeless, and no one would hire you because you looked like a villain, which wasn't really that far off. In Dabi's case, there were 3 rooms. 4 if you counted the living room and kitchen separately. Dabi didn't, since there wasn't a wall separating them. He assumed the wallpaper had once been some ugly shade of yellow, but now it had turned an even uglier shade of brown. The carpet was stiff and rough, and honestly, Dabi had slept on sidewalks that were more comfortable. Bathrooms right there. Dabi waved a hand in the general direction of the bathroom door. But the water was shut off a while ago, so it's pretty much useless. Bedroom's the doorway right next to it. What happened to the actual door? Midoriya questioned, peeking his head inside. Dabi shrugged. No idea. It was missing when I got here. Ooh, I found a bloodstain. Izuku, Toga squealed. Dabi never wanted to hear that sound again. Midoriya padded over to her and inspected the red splotch on the carpet. He murmured. It looks like they fell down and bled out. Probably dead by the time anyone found them. But he turned and walked slowly, inspecting the ground. There's a trail of blood splatters leading over here. He stopped at a smaller patch of blood. Right here is where they were first injured. My guess is that they were stabbed, walked over here. He retraced his steps to the larger stain. The collapsed and slowly bled to death. Damn, kid, Dabi whistled. That was nice. You got some sort of analysis quirk or something? Not exactly, Midoriya stammered, suddenly nervous. He mumbled something Dabi didn't hear. What was that? He said he's quirkless, Toga spat, glaring at Dabi like she was daring him to try something. Dabi raised an eyebrow. And, is that a bad thing? Hell, he snorted. If anything, that makes what you just did even more impressive. Oh, Midoriya whispered, cheeks pink. Toga seemed mildly surprised and pleased. Thanks. Dabi hummed and leaned back, eyes slipping closed. Just stating the truth, kid. No need to thank me. Still, he said. Thank you. Dabi sighed. Whatever, kid, all right, you too, Dabi announced 2 days after he'd taken the kids in. Now that you've settled in, It's time you start earning your keep. Toga raised an eyebrow from her place on the couch, fingers tangled in Midoriya's hair. Midoriya, who was laying in Toga's lap, opened one eye to stare at Dabi. And how exactly do you expect us to do that? Well, seeing as how you're two baby-faced kids, you're the perfect candidates for conning people. Toga perked up. Ooh, does this mean I'll get to practice my acting skills? Yay. We're gonna trick people? Steal from them? Midoriya frowned. Oh, great. The kid had a moral compass. Then again, seeing as how Dabi had taken the kid in, he couldn't really complain. Only the ones who deserve it, Dabi smirked. Rich people, assholes, other conmen, etc., etc. He waved his hand in the air like he was swatting something. How good are you two at acting? I'm very good, Toga grinned. Dabi suppressed a shudder. After all, I've had to pretend to be normal my entire life. And you? He questioned Midoriya, who shrugged. Pretty decent, I guess. Right, then, Dabi nodded. Come on, let's go. Instead of going towards the door like a regular person would when exiting their apartment, Dabi climbed out of the window and onto the fire escape. The kids followed him down, and after they'd all gotten to the ground, Dabi led them out of the alley. Almost 10 minutes of walking later, the entirety of which was filled with a series of questions and complaints from the children. Dabi was seriously beginning to question his recent life choices. All right, Dabi finally said, leaning against the wall. He gestured for them to sit down on a nearby bench. Pretend you're talking to each other or something. People get suspicious if they saw you two talking to someone like me. After the kids were sitting down, grinning at each other, Dabi looked out at the crowd. There, on that cafe patio. See that woman yelling at the waiter? They both glanced over at the woman. Yup, Midoriya beamed, and Toga laughed as if he'd said something funny. That's our target. Here's what you're gonna do. Dabi explained the plan as quickly as he could, then sent the two away. When they were in position, he started walking towards the woman. Right on cue, Toga and Midoriya raced around the corner, holding hands and laughing. Right as they all reached where the target was, Midoriya bumped into Dabi and fell, dragging Toga down with him, and knocked over the woman's purse, spilling everything in it. Watch where you're going, brat, Dabi growled as Midoriya hurriedly apologized and started putting everything back in the woman's purse. Dabi scoffed and stalked away, catching a glance of Toga pocketing the woman's wallet while pretending to help Midoriya. They met up in an alleyway a few minutes later, and the dynamic duo showed off their loot. Toga had managed to snag the woman's wallet and a handful of coupons, while Midoriya had also gotten a handful of coupons. How many coupons did this lady have? And, are those her car keys? Midoriya shrugged. Figured we could break in, steal some stuff, then drop her keys down the sewer drain. You really don't like her, do you? When Midoriya didn't respond, Dabi frowned. Midoriya? Kid? Hello? Izuku-chan. Toga shook him and he blinked, breaking out of his trance. Sorry, He glanced to the side, then bit his lip and looked down. Dabi frowned and looked over where Midoriya had been staring and oh. Okay then. Shit. Midoriya had been staring at a mom and her kid eating ice cream across the street, both with bright smiles. Dabi scowled and looked away, noticing that Toga did the same. So all three of them had issues involving their parents. Fun. Let's just drop her keys somewhere and head back, Dabi sighed. It'd take too long to figure out which car was hers, and I doubt people would believe the car belonged to us once we got into it anyways. Plus, now that he was really looking, the kid looked dead on his feet. Dabi doubted Midoriya would be able to do much of anything right now, especially break into a car. But Dabi didn't say that aloud. He couldn't admit how much he actually cared. Yeah, Midoriya shook his head. I don't know why I thought that would work. Come on, Izuku-chan, let's go, Toga said softly, grabbing the keys from Midoriya's hand and tossing them to the side. Midoriya nodded blankly and allowed her to tug him down the sidewalk. Dabi stuffed his hands in his pockets and led the way. The walk back was silent and subdued. Midoriya had practically gone catatonic. Like Dabi, no, Tauya's mother had been before she broke. Dabi shook his head quickly and looked away. When they finally got to the apartment, Toga and Midoriya curled up on the couch. Dabi, feeling like he was intruding on something, moved to the bedroom and sat down on the ratty sleeping bag he called a bed. Well, he thought with a sigh, that was a fucking disaster. Hey, Dabi, Izuku shifted nervously as Dabi looked over at him from his place on the couch. Yeah, kid? Izuku opened his notebook to a blank page and took a deep breath, gathering his courage. What's your quirk? Dabi's brows furrowed. What? I mean, it obviously has something to do with fire. Izuku absently chewed on his pencil. As I've seen you use it a few times. But it's so hot that it's blue. And it doesn't seem to give you fire resistance since you're covered in burns. Which is unusual because I've never seen someone with a fire quirk who didn't have some form of fire resistance. And he cut himself off, blushing. Dang it. Now Dabi probably thought he was creepy and weird and would kick Izuku and 𝗵𝗃𝗃 out. And then they'd be living on the streets again. And they'd have to find a new place to stay and, damn, kid, Dabi interrupted his spiral with a laugh. I knew you were smart. But, damn, that's good. Oh, Izuku blushed. Thank you, Dabi nodded. You actually got a lot of that right. My quirk. He raised his hand and summoned a small blue flame. Is called cremation. A brightness rivaling the sun filled Izuku's eyes, and it stayed there for the entire conversation. Izuku let out a shuddering breath, wishing that he could be anywhere other than the boys' locker room at the local gym. Of all the places to break down, it had to be here. Izuku wiped his nose on his sleeve, wishing 𝗵𝗃𝗃 were with him. But she was still showering in the girls' restrooms, and probably would be for a while, seeing as how this was the first time they'd been able to shower in almost a week. Kid, Izuku's head snapped up at Dabi's voice, quickly wiping his eyes and trying to make it look like he hadn't been crying. From the almost concerned look on Dabi's face, he wasn't successful. You okay? I'm fine, he stammered, cursing his stupid Midoriya tears. That was what Mom used to call it. A fresh wave of tears welled up and Dabi rested a hand on his shoulder, guiding him to the bench. As they sat down, Dabi moved his hand to Izuku's hair, and Izuku found himself clinging to him. Dabi froze for a split second, then continued running his fingers through Izuku's hair, pulling him closer. I miss her, Izuku whispered into Dabi's shirt. Dabi sighed. I know you do, kid, but you'll get through it. Really? Yep, I promise. Thanks, Dabi. What the fuck? 𝗵𝗃𝗃 giggled at Dabi's surprised, frustrated, exasperated groan when he once again found himself with her knife against his throat. How the hell do you do that? I told you, it's easy, she chirped, sheathing her blade and shaking some sand out of her hair. You just gotta clear your mind and hold your breath, Dabi snorted. Yeah, spare me the lesson. You probably just have a secondary quirk or some shit. Yeah, I'm gonna have to go with Dabi on this one, Izuku said from his seat, an old armchair that was held together by faith, trust, and pixie dust and duct tape. But that didn't rhyme, so 𝗵𝗃𝗃 didn't mention that part. I've been trying to copy your technique for months, and I'm still nowhere near as stealthy as you are. You're getting there, though. You're way better than when you first started. Now, 𝗵𝗃𝗃 trotted over to him and pulled him to his feet. Enough note-taking, your turn to fight against Dabi. You still need to practice that move he showed you. Ignoring his protests, she snatched the notebook and pen from his hand and pushed him over to Dabi, then plopped down in the chair with a grin. The chair made a noise that almost sounded like it was begging for the sweet release of death. 𝗵𝗃𝗃 ignored it. Now start. Izuku let out a happy, pleased content moan as he stuffed more fries into his mouth. I've missed fast food so much. You're telling me. Dabi slurped down some soda and took a bite of his hamburger. This is the best fucking meal I've had in ages. That makes two of us, 𝗵𝗃𝗃 said through a mouthful of nuggets. I don't care how much this cost, we deserve it. Micham. Izuku stole one of 𝗵𝗃𝗃's chicken nuggets and popped it in his mouth. Ladies and gentlemen of the council, I have a proposal to make. And what might that proposal be? 𝗵𝗃𝗃 asked. More junk food, Izuku declared, raising a ketchup-covered fry in the air. Once a month, we go out and get as many burgers, fries, and nuggets as we want. I second that motion. Dabi copied Izuku by lifting up his soda. Me too. 𝗵𝗃𝗃 tapped a chicken nugget against Izuku's fry. All in favor, say aye. Aye, Izuku and Dabi said at the same time. It has been decided, 𝗵𝗃𝗃 announced. Izuku and Dabi cheered, and the three of them dissolved into laughter. Dabi closed his eyes and leaned back against the bench, listening to the sounds of Toga's laughter as Midoriya pushed her on the swing set. For a second, he imagined Natsuo and Mayumi chasing each other around the playground while their mom watched from the bench, holding Shoto and smiling. He sighed and shook the memory away. Hey Dabi. Dabi opened one eye to see Midoriya standing in front of him, nervously shifting his feet. Toga was next to him, holding his arm. Yeah, Squirt? Are you okay? You looked kinda sad all of a sudden. Dabi opened his other eye and shifted so he could see them better. He paused for a moment to consider his answer. I'm okay. Just remembering stuff. Oh. Midoriya bit his lip, then sat down next to him. Toga settled herself in Midoriya's lap. Do you want to talk about it? He asked. Dabi shook his head. Midoriya nodded. He stared at the swing set, absently rubbing circles on Toga's hand. My mom used to take me to the park, he said suddenly. When I was little. She stopped taking me a few years ago. She was too busy. Being a single mom isn't easy, especially when your son is quirkless. He hissed the last word, fists clenching in his lap. Toga gently took his hands in hers and forced him to relax them. Even before my quirk manifested, my parents were never that present, she murmured. I'd go to the park all the time and play with the kids there, make friends. And then I got my quirk. She pressed up against Midoriya, resting her head on his chest. The park was near a small forest. Lots of animals. I had just started getting cravings. They were harder to control because I was so young. There was a bird, she stated matter-of-factly. Midoriya squeezed her hand. The cravings were so bad that I couldn't control myself. Killed the bird and sucked up its blood. Thing is, it was so pretty. She smiled softly. And I didn't feel any regret or disgust afterwards. Still don't. I just thought it was cute. My parents didn't feel the same way. Well, now Dabi just felt even more depressed. But lighter, too, if that made any sense. He sighed. My father never wanted me around my siblings, he started. Said they'd hold me back, keep me from reaching my full potential. But occasionally he'd get called away. For work. Mom. He tried not to choke on the word. Even after all that time, it still hurt to think about her. Mom would take us to the park. It was always later in the day, when less kids would be there. Usually it was just us. My siblings and I, we'd run around and play until it got dark. Then we'd go home and build a pillow fort in front of the TV and watch movies until we all fell asleep. That, he swallowed, blinking away the wetness in his eyes. That stopped when Mom went away. I'm sorry, Midoriya whispered. Dabi shook his head. Don't apologize. It wasn't your fault. But I made you feel like you needed to talk about it, even though you said didn't want to and stop it, kid. Dabi huffed. Really? You didn't pressure me to do anything. But, oh, hush it, Izuku. He said it was fine. Toga swatted her boyfriend on the nose, causing a small smile to flicker across his face. The silence that followed almost had Dabi falling into a doze. But just as he'd leaned his head back and closed his eyes, Midoriya spoke up again. Oh, Dabi. He hummed, not opening his eyes but listening all the same. You can, he hesitated. You can call me Izuku, if you want. Dabi blinked open his eyes and raised an eyebrow. Really? Midoriya nodded. And call me Himiko, Toga cut in, shifting in Midoriya's lap so Dabi could see her face. Okay. He swallowed. My name is, it was Tauya. Was? Midori Izuku questioned. Tauya's dead, Dabi stated firmly. Okay, my Izuku nodded. Tankimiko beamed. Dabi it is, then. Dabi smiled. Dabi yawned and leaned against the doorway, observing Izuku and Himiko as they slept. He realized how creepy this situation would seem to a normal person and held back a snort. A whimper drew his attention, and he realized it had come from Himiko. Kid, he whispered, and when there was no reply, he realized it was a nightmare. He sighed through his nose and padded over to where they were curled up on the floor, sitting down next to them. Dabi gently ran his fingers through Himiko's hair until she calmed down. After a minute, her eyes blinked open and Dabi was struck by how cat-like her eyes were. He pulled his hand away from her hair, and she looked up at him, squinting. Dabi, she questioned. Yeah, kid? Please don't stop. Oh. He blinked in mild surprise. Okay. She smiled when he put his fingers back in her hair and cuddled closer to Izuku. Thank you. Dabi hummed in reply. She yawned. G-night, Dabi nie. By the time Dabi got over his shock, she was already back asleep. All right, I'd say it's probably time to head back, Dabi yawned and stretched. We've probably got enough to last us the next week. Plus the fast food tomorrow, right? Himiko asked. Yup, Dabi replied, popping the pea. Himiko beamed and bounced excitedly. I vote McDonald's. We had McDonald's last time though, Izuku frowned. Why not someplace else? 'Cause I'm trying to collect all of the kids' meal toys before they change them, Himiko chirped. Just steal them, Dabi suggested. Himiko pouted. But that's cheating. Himiko, Izuku said. You've literally tried to murder people before. But that's different, she protested. Izuku decided she has a fair point. Okay, McDonald's it is. Dabi didn't even try to argue. Smart choice. Yes, she cheered. I really hope I get the midnight figurine. She's so cute. Izuku started to reply. But then the worst possible thing that could have happened actually happened. I am here. Okay, so maybe not the worst thing since Dabi, Niai, and Himiko were still alive. But this was close. All Might pranced by with his customary fake grin. Izuku scowled while Dabi and Himiko simultaneously flipped him off. Fucking bastard, he muttered. Ugh, I know, came a voice from behind them. Immediately, Himiko summoned a knife from who knows where and stood in front of Izuku. And Dabi lit his hands on fire and stood in front of Izuku and Himiko. Whoa, calm down. The stranger backed up. Izuku narrowed his eyes and assessed their appearance. Long, pale blue hair, dry skin, blood-red eyes with bags under them. The stranger obviously didn't care about his appearance, was in serious need of some moisturizer, and hadn't gotten much sleep lately. He was holding a phone, but his pointer finger was raised in the air. 5-point activation quirk, then, and he couldn't turn it off. He agreed with Izuku's statement about hating All Might, so he obviously wasn't a hero fan. But he couldn't be a Stain supporter since All Might was the only hero Stain respected. So, not much care for appearance, sleep-deprived possible insomniac. 5-point quirk activation, an anti-heroes but not a Stain supporter. When Izuku noticed that everyone else was still silent, he realized he'd accidentally mumbled his entire analysis aloud. Whoops. At least Himiko and Dabi would know to watch out for his hands if it came down to a fight. Damn, your intelligence stats are off the charts, the stranger rasped. Dabi shifted so he was mostly covering Himiko and Izuku. Who the hell are you? Shigaraki Tamina, the stranger smirked. Leader of the League of Villains, and we're recruiting. League of Villains, Dabi scoffed. Never heard of them. Well, we haven't done anything yet. Shigaraki leaned against the wall, while the trio watched him with narrowed eyes. But that's just because I haven't gathered enough party members. And you three are too advanced to be NPCs. Especially him. He nodded at Izuku. Himiko growled. What are you planning? Izuku asked. If you're gathering forces, you're obviously preparing for something big. What is it? Oh, that's simple, Shigaraki grinned, eyes taking on a manic gleam that made Izuku tense. I'm after the ultimate boss. I want to kill All Might. Izuku's eyes widened slightly. Kill All Might? But that was... No, it wasn't impossible. Not with what Izuku knew. How do we know we can trust you? Himiko scowled, shifting her grip on her knife. Shigaraki shrugged. You don't. Well, Izuku reasoned. At least he isn't trying to lie to win us over. Shigaraki's phone dinged, and he glanced at it, then nodded. Gotta go. He took out a notepad and a pen, scribbled something down, then ripped the page out and held it out for them. Give it some thought. Meet me here when you've decided. Himiko eyed it suspiciously, but Dabi just rolled his eyes and snatched it, right as something black and swirling appeared behind Shigaraki. He turned and disappeared into it. Whoa, Izuku whispered. A warp quirk? That's so cool. I wonder how many people they can transport at once. Or how many portals they can make at a time. Do they have a range? Or can they make a portal to anywhere? Maybe it has to be a place they've seen before. Or maybe, slow it down. Kid, Dabi cut him off, ruffling his hair. You'll have time to analyze the quirk later. Let's just head home for now. Right? Izuku nodded, still grinning. Teleportation quirks were so rare, he couldn't believe they'd actually encountered one. If the League of Villains had a quirk like that, Izuku wondered what other kinds of quirk people. Izuku, he reminded himself. Quirks belong to people. Still, he couldn't help but theorize. A warp quirk would be extremely useful for a villain group, and it definitely increased their chances of actually succeeding in their goal to kill All Might. Depending on how the quirk worked, the League could Izuku realized, looking up. We're home already. You're so cute when you're like that, Himiko giggled. Now come on, silly. You can write down all of those super amazing ideas of yours once we're inside. That night, Himiko and Dabi Niai had to pry Izuku's notebook and pen out of his hands, so they could force him to go to bed. He'd waited until they fell asleep, found a flashlight, and continued his analysis until he passed out. In the morning, Himiko found him cuddling his notebook. The flashlight had run out of battery. 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗲 is online. 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗲. So fuck math class, am I right? 𝐼𝐧𝐭𝐷𝐿𝐼𝐴𝐺. Preach 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗲. My teacher is chill though. 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗲. Not his fault that trigonometry is the bane of my existence. The underscore Kraken. Trigonometry asterisk 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗲. Fuck you the underscore Kraken. You wish you could 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗲. You 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗲. Greenie would have helped me 𝗧𝗨𝐿𝐼𝐴𝐺𝐿. Yeah, a 𝗧𝗨𝐿𝐼𝐴𝐺. He would have 𝗵𝗃𝗏 is online. 𝗵𝗃𝗏. I found a stray cat today, and I have named him Kraken Jr. because he's a bastard. _Kraken. Fuck you 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗏 123. A naming skills / gen Snorlax use yawn. Pic? 𝗵𝗃𝗏. Picture of a gray and white cat with tattered ears screaming at the camera Lord of the Fries. Aw, cute. Snorlax use yawn. Baby 𝗵𝗃𝗏. He won't stop following me around and screaming whenever he wants me to pet him the _Kraken. Ha loser 𝗵𝗃𝗏. Circumflex. And this is why I named him Kraken 𝗂𝗏 is online. 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗏 123. Yo wish up Snorlax use yawn. Hey condiment 𝗂𝗏. Ever just wanna commit a felony 𝗵𝗃𝗏? Yes Snorlax use yawn. All of the time. The _Kraken. Every day 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗏 123. Constantly Lord of the Fries. Please do not, I don't have the money for bail, and I don't want to have to break you out the _Kraken. Bold of you to assume I would get caught 𝗵𝗃𝗏. Oh, you would totally get caught the _Kraken. Rude 𝗵𝗃𝗏. I'm not wrong though 𝗂𝗏. I doubt cat would do anything to hurt his chances of getting into UA 𝗵𝗃𝗏. I 𝗵𝗃𝗏. Yeah, you're right. Chaos Agent number 666 is online. Chaos Agent number 666. So y'all know how Greenie and Knife haven't been active for a few months. Snorlax use yawn. Yeah, 𝗂𝗏. Yeah, what about it 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗏 123. Do you have news? Chaos Agent number 666. Sort of 𝗵𝗃𝗏. Wait, who are they? The _Kraken. Oh yeah, I forgot I never told you about them Lord of the Fries. Their full usernames are Greenbean and Knife Tomato. They're two users who used to be pretty active on here. But a few months ago they stopped showing up, and we haven't heard from them since. Snorlax use yawn. They actually knew each other Earl, so there's no way it was a coincidence 𝗂𝗏. So Chaos, why do you bring them up? Chaos Agent number 666. Well, you know how they always called each other Izuku and Himiko. Chaos Agent number 666. I just saw a news article for two missing teens in my area named Midoriya Izuku and Toga Himiko. They've been missing for about 2 months now. 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗏 123. Holy shit Lord of the Fries. Oh my gods. 𝗵𝗃𝗏. Do you think it's them? Chaos Agent number 666. It's gotta be Snorlax use yawn. There's no way it isn't them the _Kraken. Not to be that person, but are you 100% sure it's them? Chaos Agent number 666. Midori is quirkless and has green hair and eyes, and Toga has a blood quirk Snorlax use yawn. Fuck 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗏 123. That's definitely them 𝗏𝗏𝗏 is online. 𝗵𝗃𝗏. Holy fucking shit Lord of the Fries. Oh my gods 𝗏𝗏𝗏. Wait, what's going on 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗏 123. Chaos found Greenie and Knife 𝗏𝗏𝗏. What? The _Kraken. Scroll up 𝗂𝗏𝗏. Chaos, what area do you live in? Chaos Agent number 666. Mustfu. Chaos Agent number 666. Musatafu. Chaos Agent number 666. Fuck Lord of the Fries. Musatafu. Chaos Agent number 666. Yes, 𝗂𝗏𝗏. I'm near there. I can ask around and see if anyone's seen them 𝗏𝗏𝗏. Same here circumflex Lord of the Fries. Fuck, I hope nothing's happened to them 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗏 123. Holy shit, Dad used the fuck word Chaos Agent number 666. The article said that Midoriya was last seen in a crowd outside his apartment building, which had caught on fire. Toga's parents saw her racing out of the house at about the same time. The _Kraken. Shit, Chaos Agent number 666. Get fucking this. The fire was caused by a villain fight. Some sidekick from the Endeavor Agency misfired and hit a line of trees nearby. Midoriya's mother died. 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗏 123. 𝗵𝗃𝗏. Oh fuck the _Kraken. You've got to be fucking kidding me 𝗂𝗏𝗏. And this is why heroes are the fucking worst Lord of the Fries. Got him it. Snorlax used yawn. I'll get in contact with some people and see what they can find out Snorlax use yawn. T-Tile Snorlax use yawn is offline. 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗏 123. What can the rest of us do? Lord of the Fries. Put up missing posters. Post on social media. Do anything you can to spread the word 𝗬𝗏𝗏 is online. Lord of the Fries. We're going to find those two if it kills us 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗏 123. Finally Void, I've been texting you for forever. 𝗂𝗏𝗏. IGTG. I'll update you on what I've found TMRW 𝗏𝗏𝗏. Good luck 𝗬𝗏𝗏𝗏. Good luck. 𝗵𝗃𝗏𝗏. Don't die 𝗂𝗏𝗏𝗏 is offline. 𝗬𝗏𝗏𝗏. If those two are dead, I'll murder them the _Kraken. Not if I get to them first 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏. I just really hope they're okay, Lord of the Flies. They'll be fine, 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗲 Of course they'll be fine. Knife doesn't go anywhere without a multiple knives and Greenie is super smart. 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗲 They'll be okay, they have to, Iwayaki whispered as he anxiously waited for his older brother to text him back. They have to? Are we sure about this? Izuku asked, fiddling with his hands. Like completely, absolutely, 100% sure about this? Nope, Dabi replied. But we're already on our way there, and I know none of us are changing our minds. Don't worry, Izuchan, it'll be fine, Himiko grinned. I won't let them lay a finger on your adorable face. Plus, if it works out, maybe we could find a way to get back at that sidekick for what they did. Dabi growled at the mention of that. When Izuku had told him about how his mother's death was caused by a fight between a villain and one of Endeavor's sidekicks, he'd gotten so mad that smoke had started trailing off of him. It had taken almost 15 minutes for Himiko and Izuku to calm him down. Himiko grabbed Izuku's hand and squeezed it, offering him a reassuring smile. Izuku smiled back, and they once again lapsed into silence, though the air was less tense than before. Of course it's a bar, is the first thing Dabi said when they got there. Izuku wondered how Shigaraki expected them to be able to meet him there if two of their trio were minors. Then he remembered that Shigaraki was a villain, which meant that this was probably a villain bar, so no one would care if Izuku and Himiko were underage. Mom would hate seeing me in a place like this, Izuku thought, then forced the thought away. His mom wasn't there, and it was a hero's fault. Maybe this would give him a chance to get justice. Well, now or never, Dabi muttered, strutting forward and pushing open the door. Izuku and Himiko followed him in to find that the bar was entirely empty, except for one person. A bartender shrouded in the same dark mist that the portal had been made out of. Obviously, he was the owner of that quirk. Well, we're here, Dabi grunted. Where is he? The warp user seemed to bow his head in greeting, but it was hard to tell with all of the mist. You three must be the ones Shigaraki Tamura told me about. My name is Kurogiri. I am his caretaker. I apologize for the inconvenience, but Tamura is currently in a meeting with his sensei. He should be back shortly. In the meantime, would any of you like a drink? Himiko, Dabi interrupted her before she could say anything about blood. Himiko pouted but stayed quiet. We're fine, he said to Kurogiri, who nodded. Very well. Tamura will be here in about 7 minutes. And so they stood there in awkward silence for 7 minutes, except for Himiko, who hummed a made-up tune and bobbed her head to the beat. Dabi glared suspiciously at Kurogiri, who continued to wipe the same shot glass over and over even though it was already spotless. Izuku was just trying his best not to mumble aloud, while he analyzed everything he laid his eyes on. It was difficult. Finally, a swirling black portal appeared in the middle of the room and Shigaraki stepped out. Himiko, Dabi, and Izuku all tensed and subconsciously moved closer to each other. Ah, so you finally showed up. Took you long enough. Izuku frowned. It's only been 2.5 days. Exactly. Too long. Shigaraki hopped up on one of the bar stools and leaned against the bar, assessing them. Okay then, names and quirks. All three of them hesitated. Dabi spoke first. I go by Dabi. My quirk is cremation. He lit his hand on fire for a couple of seconds before extinguishing it. Earl names, not usernames. Shigaraki glared at him. Dabi glared back. It's real enough. That's all you're getting. Shigaraki tensed, eyes narrowing, so Izuku spoke up before things could escalate. You haven't reached a high enough friendship level to unlock that part of his backstory yet, Izuku explained. It took us forever to get it. There was a couple of seconds of tense silence before Shigaraki huffed and seemed to relax. Fine. What about you two? Izuku debated the pros and cons of revealing his real name, then decided that there wasn't really anything they could do with it since he didn't really give a crap about anyone from his past life. Sure, Auntie Mitsuki and Uncle Masaru seemed to care about him, but Izuku had hardly talked to them at all before Mom had yet. Plus, they hadn't even noticed their son was abusing anyone he deemed lesser than him. Following that, any fondness Izuku felt towards them shriveled up and died. Midoriya, he said, finally. Midoriya Izuku. And I'm quirkless. And I'm Toga Himiko. Himiko chirped before Izuku could gauge Shigaraki's reaction. My quirk is called transformation. If I drink someone's blood, I can turn into them. She waved her knife in the air excitedly. Shigaraki watched it warily. You said your goal is to kill All Might, Izuku said, bringing Shigaraki's attention back to him. His voice was calm and cold, like the last time he'd faced down Kacchan. How do you plan on doing that? Simple, Shigaraki smirked. All Might's gonna start teaching at UA in about a month. He can't go all out if he's also trying to watch out for a bunch of kids. Plus, his eyes gleamed maniacally. We have a secret weapon. Secret weapon? 𝗵𝗃 gasped. Really? Something that could face up against All Might? What is it? Shigaraki chuckled. To know that, I need to know that you're officially joining the league, not collecting our secrets so you can go running to the heroes. What's to stop us from joining and then running to the heroes? Izuku challenged. Shigaraki grinned. After seeing what we have, you'd be too scared to. Izuku thought that was pretty presumptuous of him. But then again, something with the power to kill All Might would have to be really powerful, so there might have been some truth to what Shigaraki was saying. Can we have a minute to discuss? Izuku asked. Shigaraki nodded and 𝗵𝗃, Dabi, and Izuku huddled together. I don't trust them, Dabi growled. You never trust anyone, Izuku replied. But to be fair, I don't trust them either. I wonder what their secret weapon is? 𝗵𝗃 speculated. It's gotta be so cool if it's gonna beat All Might. That's what I'm worried about, Izuku muttered. They could be overestimating their own strength. But they also don't know what we know, 𝗵𝗃 whispered. A weapon that can supposedly defeat All Might, plus knowledge about his weakness. We'd be able to kill him for sure. Just think, Izuchin? A chance to kill All Might. They all went quiet at that. I don't like it, Dabi muttered a few seconds later. But if joining them means we can kill not only the #1 hero, but also the fucker that started that fire. He trailed off. They exchanged a round of glances, then all nodded. Izuku took a deep breath and turned to face Shigaraki. All right, he said. We'll join you. Excellent, Shigaraki grinned. Welcome to the League of Villains. All right, so we'll need to get a hold of the hero courses schedules, so we can find a time when All Might will be away from the school, and therefore more vulnerable. Izuku shifted his position on the couch, pulling his legs up so he was sitting crisscrossed. I'd offer to hack the systems, but Nezu himself wrote those codes, and while I am pretty skilled at hacking, I doubt I'd be able to get through his defenses without setting off some kind of alarm. If that happened, they'd know someone was planning something, and the element of surprise would be lost. I could always try to sneak in. 𝗵𝗃 raised her hand. I'd just need one of the students' blood, and I could turn into them. We'd need a distraction to allow you to sneak off and search for the schedule, Izuku hummed. The media, Shigaraki spoke up, finally putting down his handheld game console. With All Might working at UA now, there's bound to be a mob of reporters at the gates within a few days. Izuku nodded slowly. That could work. The gates at UA automatically slam closed if anyone who doesn't have an ID tries to pass through. But if we used your quirk to break a hole through the wall and let them in, his eyes lit up. They wouldn't report the break-in because then they'd have to admit that they weren't allowed to be there. And all of the panic and confusion would be a perfect distraction for 𝗵𝗃. Shigaraki, that's brilliant. He scribbled everything down in his notebook, grinning wildly. Not only would they get a chance to kill All Might, Kacchan was sure to pass the entrance exam, which meant that Izuku would also get to see him. This was going to be so great. Slow down there, kid, Dabi chuckled, ruffling Izuku's hair. One revenge plot at a time. Right, Izuku giggled sheepishly. Sorry. He looked back over at Shigaraki. How many other people have you recruited? About 35, give or take a few, he responded. Izuku nodded. Right. That should give us at least 45, maybe 50 by the time we attack. We'll need to know the students' quirks too, so we're not taken off guard. Shigaraki snorted. What can a bunch of stupid brats do? You'd be surprised, Dabi murmured. Izuku fixed Shigaraki with a hard stare. Don't forget that some of these kids have been training most of their lives to get where they are now. We shouldn't underestimate them. They're not going to go down without a fight. Especially if a lot of them were like Kacchan, which honestly wouldn't be surprising. US entrance exam would obviously be biased towards powerful quirks, like a lot of things were these days. The stronger your quirk, the better you were treated. So the majority of kids getting into the hero classes would have been pampered their entire lives. Everyone hoped that by helping a future hero get into a hero school, they'd be giving themselves a leg up in the world. Izuku snorted. Once Kacchan got into UA, he wouldn't give a shit about any of his past teachers or classmates. They'd be, as Kacchan always said, just pebbles on my path to greatness. I don't know if 𝗵𝗃 will have enough time to get pictures of the hero class schedules and the files on all of the hero students' quirks. And as I said earlier, if I tried to hack into US systems to find them, Nezu would definitely find out, he frowned, tapping his pencil against his chin. Just have her impersonate a hero student, Shigaraki said. She might not be able to get all of the information on their quirks, but she'll probably be able to get a good enough idea before she has to leave. Yeah, I guess that'll have to do. Izuku didn't like not knowing their opponents well, but there wasn't much he could do about it, so he moved on. Well, I'd say we've got a pretty solid plan. With All Might's weakness and whatever secret weapon you've got. Wait, weakness? Shigaraki interrupted. If you're talking about how he's not as strong as he used to be, we already know about that. Oh, I haven't told you. Izuku grinned. All Might's on a time limit. He's only able to stay in his muscle form for 3 hours before he deflates into a form so weak. A strong breeze could probably knock him over. Shigaraki's eyes gleamed. Really? And where did you learn this? An encounter with the #1 hero himself. The day he told me I couldn't be a hero. I'm so very excited to show him that he was right. After a pause, Shigaraki nodded. With a weakness like that, killing him will be easier than I thought. Izuku smirked in agreement. And what about your secret weapon? Trust us enough to reveal it yet? Shigaraki hummed thoughtfully. Very well. 𝗓𝗓𝗓𝗓𝗓, who had been standing silently in the corner this whole time, nodded, and a swirling black vortex appeared in the middle of the room. Izuku's eyes lit up, and he resisted the urge to leap over the couch and start examining it. Instead, he stood up and followed Shigaraki through it, determined to remember every second of passing through the portal in order to get more information for his notes. All of that was thrown out of his mind, however, when he saw what was waiting in the room he'd walked into. Meet Nomu, Shigaraki said once everyone had arrived. Our secret weapon. The thing that will kill All Might. What the hell? Dabi muttered, perfectly summarizing the trio's thought process at that moment. The Nomu, as Shigaraki called it, was massive. Dark skin was stretched taut over hulking muscles, contrasted by bright red scars that crisscrossed the monster's arms. Its beak-like mouth, filled with razor-sharp teeth, appeared to be grinning, but the monster's dull, empty eyes implied that this was merely how its mouth was shaped. The smile was not caused by any emotions. Finally, Izuku's gaze turned to the thing he found most interesting. The Nomu's exposed brain. There was no blood, no sign of damage. Izuku knew that having one's brain partially uncovered did not necessarily mean death. If medical attention was received quickly enough, a person could continue their life with little to no negative effects. But this was not a skull injury or neurosurgery. The upper part of the monster's skull was gone entirely, and apparently had been for some time. But yet here it stood, alive and breath weight. Was it breathing? Was it even alive? Can I? Izuku's voice was a mere whisper. Is it safe to touch? Nomu does not act of its own free will, Shigaraki said. It has no free will. It will do whatever it is ordered to without hesitation, and I am the only person it takes orders from. So unless I tell it otherwise, right now, Nomu is completely harmless. You could have just said yes, Dabi grumbled. Everyone ignored him. Incredible, Izuku breathed out, slowly walking forward to place his hand on Nomu's beak. Careful, Izuchin, Himiko called from behind him. Izuku nodded absently, moving his hand to Nomu's arm. He pressed lightly, but there was no give, not even when he increased the pressure. It was like a rock. Amazing. How was it made? Nomu is made from a human corpse that has been genetically modified in a way that allows it to hold multiple quirks. 𝗓𝗓𝗓𝗓 spoke up for the first time. The experimentation on the body leaves it with no higher brain function, only able to take orders, making it the perfect weapon. Multiple quirks? Izuku turned to stare at 𝗓𝗓𝗓𝗓. How is that possible? I do not know the exact process myself, but if you would be interested, I could ask the one who created Nomu if they would be willing to meet with you. Oh, please do, Izuku beamed, turning back to Nomu. This is absolutely incredible, to be able to not only reanimate a corpse, but also give it multiple quirks and make it only answer to one specific person. Whoever created this thing has to be a genius. He stepped back from the Nomu and flipped his notebook open to a new section, already starting a sketch. So, Shigaraki smirked. Do you think Nomu can kill All Might? Izuku grinned up from his notebook, eyes gleaming. The symbol of peace is as good as dead. Ochako hummed happily as she walked to school. Well, it was less walking, more bouncing, but whatever. She still couldn't believe she had gotten into Class 1A. It was so exciting. After the disaster that was the entrance exam, Ochako had thought that she was never going to get in. But it turned out that there were these things called rescue points, and since she'd helped a bunch of people out, she still passed the exam. The hero course was both exactly what she was expecting, and nothing like it at all. It was hardcore, that wasn't surprising, but she hadn't expected the threat of expulsion on the first day. But of course, it turned out that Aizawa-sensei was just messing with them. The kid who got last place. What was his name? Shima. Shinko. Shijo. Something like that. Anyways, he'd looked so heartbroken when he saw his name was in last place. Not that you could tell much because his expression hardly changed at all. But then, when Aizawa-sensei revealed it had been a trick, his relief was obvious. Well, obvious to Ochako at least. There were some of her classmates that she really didn't like. This one kid with grape-looking things on his head was a major pervert. He was always trying to look up the girls' shirts and peek into the locker rooms. Ugh, Ochako didn't even want to think his name. That's how disgusted she was. She really hoped he would get expelled. Of course, Grape Perv wasn't the only classmate that Ochako found off-putting. There was also Explosion Boy. His name was Bakugo, right? Who kinda looked like an angry Pomeranian. She was glad that Aizawa-sensei's quirk let him cancel out other people's quirks because otherwise, she would be terrified of getting exploded just because angry Pomeranian thought she was looking at him funny. There weren't only bad people in her class, though. She'd made friends with this girl, Asui. No, wait, she'd said to call her Tsu. Anyways, Tsu had a frog mutation quirk, which was super cool. And she ribbited just like a frog, which was the cutest thing Ochako had ever seen. Or heard, technically. Whatever. Tsu was also super blunt. She tended to just speak her mind without sugarcoating or beating around the bush. Ochako found this really refreshing because so many people liked to avoid the truth or weren't willing to say what they were thinking because they were scared of hurting people's feelings. Honestly, the world would probably be so much better if everyone just said what they meant instead of lying all the time. But anyway, back to talking about Yua. The training exercise the day before had been insane. Ochako had been on a hero team, but they lost against Pomeranian Boy and that super fast kid, Ida. She was bummed, but she still tried her best, and that was what mattered. And speaking of All Might, Ochako still hadn't gotten over the fact that the #1 hero was her teacher. Sure, he wasn't the best at it, and he clearly didn't have a teaching license, but he tried his hardest, and plus, he was All Might, which more than made up for his flaws. Hiya there, cutie. Ochako slowed her trot and looked around, spotting a blonde girl walking towards her. Oh, hello. Ochako smiled. Who are you? I'm Toga Himiko, the girl chirped, skipping beside her. What about you? The name seemed familiar, but Ochako shrugged it off. My name's Uraraka Ochako. It's nice to meet you. Nice to meet you too, Toga grinned, revealing a pair of sharp fangs. You go to Yua, right? That's so cool. How could you tell? Ochako's brows furrowed as she tilted her head to the side. You're wearing the uniform, silly, Toga laughed, pointing at Ochako's uniform. Oh, yeah, Ochako blushed in embarrassment. You're kinda silly, and cute. Toga's grin seemed more predatory now, but it was probably just Ochako's imagination. Have you made any friends yet? Only one so far, but I'm sure I'll make more. Her name's Tsu. She's got a frog quirk that's super adorable. Well then, you two must be the cutest pair in the class. Toga covered her mouth with one hand as she giggled. Maybe the entire school, Ochako blushed. Oh, thank you. You're welcome, Toga beamed. You're in the hero course, right? I can tell from the buttons on your shoulders. Did you know the buttons look different for every course? Ochako's eyebrows raised in surprise. Really? Toga nodded. The hero course has one button on each shoulder, and support and general studies both have two, though general studies has a gap between their buttons. Oh, and management has 3 buttons on each shoulder. It's super cool that you know that, Ochako complimented her. Thank you. Must have a really powerful quirk to have gotten into 1A. What is it? It's called zero gravity, Ochako explained. If I touch something with all 5 of my fingers, it floats. And then when I do this, she pressed all of her fingers together, making an arch with her hands. The gravity comes back. That's perfect, Toga cheered. Just what I need, Ochako frowned. What do you mean, just what you need? Well, you see, I'm trying to infiltrate Yua, and I need some of your blood to do it. What? Ochako sputtered, backing away. Toga's smile grew sharper, and she pounced. Ochako fell backward, head slamming against the sidewalk. Vision spinning, she tried to get back to her feet, but something hit her head again, and the world went black. Tsuyu sat quietly in her seat while her classmates mingled. Well, most of them, anyway. A few, like the boy with red and white hair and the raven-headed one, were silent as well. She glanced at the clock and frowned. Not that anyone would be able to tell with her face structure. Class started in 2 minutes and Uraraka still wasn't here. Tsuyu wasn't superstitious, but it couldn't be good luck to be late this early in the school year. When the bell finally rang and Uraraka still hadn't arrived, Tsuyu grew mildly worried. Sure, she probably could have just woken up late, but Uraraka seemed like the type to get out of bed as soon as her alarm rang. Alright, class, settle down, Aizawa-sensei droned. I've got something important to tell you. Today will be. The door was thrown open and Uraraka rushed in, sliding into her seat. Sorry I'm late, she panted. My train was running behind. Take an earlier one next time, Aizawa-sensei said. Now, as I was saying, today you'll be choosing a class president and vice president. Do it however you want, I don't care. As the class erupted into excited chatter, Tsuyu stood and walked over to Uraraka, who grinned up at her. Good morning, Tsu. How are you doing? Fine, Tsuyu replied. I have a question. You told me yesterday that you walked to school, so how could your train have run late if you don't take the train? Oh, that. Uraraka giggled, leaning in conspiratorially and lowering her voice. I just lied about that so our teacher would let me off easy. I didn't miss the train. I accidentally pressed off on my alarm instead of snooze, so I got out of bed way later than I meant to. Oh, okay, Tsuyu nodded. She still felt as if there was something off. But then again, she'd only known Uraraka for a few days, so maybe she was wrong. Everyone, Ida shouted, drawing the attention of the entire class. I have an idea. Why don't we vote for the class president? But won't everyone just vote for themselves? Someone questioned. Which is how we'll know that the person who gets multiple votes is fit to be president, Ida yelled back. The girl with the earphone jacks, Jiru, winced and covered her ears. Nobody else had any ideas, so they all wrote down a name on slips of paper that Yaoyorozu handed out. Tsuyu went back to her desk and stared at her paper, thinking. They didn't really know each other that well, so it was difficult to choose someone. Sure, Tsuyu sort of wanted to be president, but she knew that no one would vote for her, so voting for herself would be a waste. Eventually, she scribbled down Ida's name and placed her slip in the box. He was obviously pretty keen on being president, and he did seem pretty responsible, so he'd be a good fit. When all of the votes were tallied, Yaoyorozu won with 3 votes, and Ida had 2. Tsuyu was surprised to see that she had a vote, but when she saw that there weren't any tallies next to Uraraka's name, she knew who had voted for her. The bell rang for lunch, and a few minutes later Tsuyu found herself sitting across from her 2 new presidents, with Uraraka next to her. Congratulations on getting class president, Yaoyorozu, Uraraka said. And vice president for you, Ida. Thank you, Ida shouted. Tsuyu was starting to doubt he had any volume control. Call me Momo, Yaoyorozu smiled shyly. And to be honest, I'm a little shocked. I never expected to get 3 votes. Well, you deserve it, Uraraka chirped, shoveling food in her mouth. Momo nodded in thanks and began eating as well. So, Uraraka spoke up after she had swallowed her food. What do you all think of our classmates so far? Some of them are quite powerful, Momo replied. Todoroki and Bakugo, for example. Something flickered across Uraraka's face at the mention of the explosive blonde, but she said nothing. Bakugo's quirk is very powerful, but he needs to learn proper teamwork before he can truly be a hero, Ida said, making chopping motions with his hands. The way he acted in the training exercise yesterday was certainly villainous, but I have a feeling he was not acting. Todoroki is similar, Momo said. He may have handled the exercise well, but he barely said a word to his teammate. Tsuyu nodded. Covering the entire building in ice was very smart, though I'm wondering if he also has a fire quirk. What with the way his hair appears, and how he was able to melt the ice. He does, Momo confirmed. We've interacted a few times at galas and similar events. He has a combination of endeavors and his mother's quirks. Ooh, cool. Uraraka swallowed a big bite of her food and checked her phone. It must have gone off without Tsuyu noticing. She typed something, clicked a button, then set it down. When she met Tsuyu's questioning gaze, she explained. One of my friends texted to see how I was doing. He's really sweet like that. Aw, how cute, Momo smiled. You two must be close. Uraraka nodded enthusiastically, stuffing more food in her mouth. I wonder how some of our classmates got through the entrance exam, she thought aloud. I mean, how does being invisible help you take down giant robots? I'm wondering the same thing about Kuda, Ida interjected. Talking to animals is quite useful, but how would those animals have helped him against machinery? We can ask them later, Tsuyu reasoned. Maybe they'll give us some ideas for utilizing our own quirks. That's a great idea, Asui, Ida exclaimed. Call me Tsu, she responded. This time, she heard Uraraka's phone ding. She checked it, pouted, and sent a reply. Something wrong? Momo asked. It's nothing, Uraraka waved off. Just a small change in our plans for later. That's unfortunate, Momo frowned. What? She was cut off by a shrill alarm ringing through the building, shocking all of them. A few kids yelped and started running towards the exits. "What's happening?" Ida questioned a nearby student. "An intruder alarm," they replied, panicked. "I've gone here for 2 years, and this has never happened." Tsuyu turned to Uraraka, eyes widening when she realized the girl had disappeared. "Where did Uraraka go?" "I think she ran off already," Momo shouted over the noise. "Come on, let's get to the hall." The next few minutes were absolute chaos. Everyone was rushing towards the exits, pushing and shoving their way forward. But soon the hall became so crowded that Tsuyu struggled to just stay upright. At some point, she lost sight of Momo and Ida. She would have tried to call out to them, but she doubted they would be able to hear her. After almost 10 minutes, it was finally over, and everyone headed back to their classrooms. When Tsuyu entered class 1A, she noticed Uraraka talking to Izawa-sensei. Izawa-sensei said something, nodded, and Uraraka walked away. She passed by Tsuyu on the way out the door and gave her an apologetic smile. "I'm not feeling too well," she explained. "So Izawa-sensei is letting me head home early. I'll see you tomorrow, okay?" "All right," Tsuyu nodded. "Hope you feel better." "Thank you," Uraraka beamed. "Bye." "Bye," Tsuyu responded. This must be why she was acting off all day, she thought as she headed back to her seat. She must have been feeling bad, and the break-in only made it worse. She hoped Uraraka would be feeling well enough to come back to school the next day. "Ready, Izuku?" Himiko chirped. Izuku nodded, shifting nervously, anxiously, uneasily. Himiko smiled, standing up on her tippy toes to kiss him on the forehead, then stepped away so she could look over their outfits one last time. They both wore a black undersuit, split into a shirt and leggings to make it easier to change in and out of. Black fingerless gloves. Hoodies that were cropped a little below their chests. Izuku's green and Himiko's red. And belts equipped with numerous knives and support items, such as flash grenades and smoke bombs. Even more knives were hidden all over their bodies. Both of them had metal masks equipped with air filters, the sides patterned with triangles that resembled fangs. That was where the similarities ended. Izuku wore green pants over his leggings and black combat boots, while Himiko had a red pleated skirt and heeled boots that reached midway between her knees and ankles. One of Himiko's favorite things about her outfit was the support item. Her syringes. She had 6, 1 hidden in each of her sleeves, 1 on either side of her chest, and 2 on her belt. Each was attached to 2 tubes, 1 running up to her mask, and 1 into one of the 2 2-liter tanks attached to the back of her waist, and had a switch that allowed her to switch between tubes. "Oh, we look fantastic," Himiko squealed in excitement, anticipation, delight, squeezing Izuku in a hug, one that he quickly returned. "If you two are done," Shigaraki griped from the other side of the closed door. "It's almost time. Get out here." Himiko rolled her eyes, but stepped away from Izuku, giving him one last peck on his forehead. He slipped his hand into hers, fingers intertwined, and together they walked down the hall and stepped through the warp gate. When they emerged, it was not into the 𝗧𝗏𝗃, but a warehouse where the League of Villains forces were gathered. They obviously weren't going to reveal the location of the bar to any random criminal or low-level villain. So this was where they were meeting. "Took you too long enough," drawled a voice to their left. Himiko turned and grinned up at Dabi. "Well, unlike some people, Dabi ni Izuku, and I need to look good for this. It's a very special event, you know? Izuku's gonna get to see Kacchan again." She bounced in place, barely containing her enthusiasm, elation, joy. Dabi huffed and ruffled her hair, then shot a concerned look at Izuku, who had gone uncharacteristically quiet. "Izuku," Himiko asked softly, squeezing his hand. "Are you okay?" It took him a few moments to answer. Am I doing the right thing? My mom wouldn't want this. I wanted to be a hero for so long, and now I'm about to go murder one." "Izuku, hey, look at me." Himiko moved so she was standing in front of him. His eyes, watery and uncertain, hesitant, scared, met hers. "Inko might not have wanted this, but you're doing it for her. This is the first step in avenging her death, making sure she gets justice. Don't you want that?" "It's okay to be nervous, kid," Dabi said. "I was, too. But you've got to push through that because there won't be another opportunity like this. You can't get cold feet, otherwise, you'll regret it for the rest of your life." "Right," Izuku nodded, letting out a small breath. "You guys are right. I can do this. I've got to. For Mom. I believe in you, Izuku." Himiko hugged him tightly, dragging Dabi into it. Izuku laughed and rested his chin on her head, seeing as how he couldn't hug back since his arms were pinned to his body. They drew apart not long after, but Izuku and Himiko kept holding hands, and Dabi ni stuck close to them. Slowly, more and more villains began to arrive, all coming through Kurogiri's portals as an extra precaution. Some were alone, others came in groups. The largest group Himiko had seen so far had been 7. But she wasn't really paying attention, so there could have been another group with more. "Hey, Izuku," she started, in an attempt to get him out of his head. "Tell me about some of these villains. What do you think their quirks are?" "Oh, let's see. Well, they've obviously got some kind of marine animal mutation. Maybe a shark of some sort. They're also wearing goggles, so are their eyes sensitive? Oh, and those two over there are probably related." Izuku perked up as he got more into it. "Both of their quirks seem to have to do with their hair. And I think, yes, see, she's controlling her hair. Showing off, I think. But they look kinda similar, and combined with how familiar they are with each other and the similar quirks, they've got to be cousins, at least. Maybe sisters, but I wouldn't be too sure." He looked around, trying to find new targets. But his search was stopped when Shigaraki drew everyone's attention. "Villains," he called. All conversations drew to an immediate stop. They may have been hardened criminals, but Shigaraki was intimidating, especially while wearing his villain outfit. "All those hands," Himiko shuddered. It was decidedly not cute, but she guessed that was one of the things that made him so scary. "The time has come," he grinned. Not that you could really tell with that hand covering his face. "The fall of the symbol of peace is coming, and we shall be the ones to bring him down." He spread his arms wide, inciting a deafening round of cheers and applause from everyone in the warehouse. Himiko bounced up and down, squeezing Izuku's hand tight. As everyone got ready to leave, Izuku, Himiko, and Dabi all gathered around Shigaraki, who nodded at Kurogiri. Warp gates began appearing around the warehouse, delivering villains to their designated areas in the 𝐲𝐻𝐻𝐵. Finally, in front of them, the last portal appeared, larger than the rest. Shigaraki walked forward, disappearing into the swirling vortex of black, with Dabi right behind him. Izuku took a deep breath and squeezed Himiko's hand, a gesture she returned. Himiko walked forward, pulling Izuku with her, and together, they stepped through. The first thing Izuku noticed was the change in temperature. The warehouse had been chilly and damp, but the air on the other side of the portal was fresh, warm. It took him a few moments to adjust, but when he had, he could practically taste the bloodlust radiating off of the villains. Himiken's hand tightened around his, and he looked over to see her staring at him. The bright yellow of her eyes was like a warning sign. Danger, keep away. As it was with most teenage boys in the media, this didn't deter him. In fact, it did quite the opposite. It drew him in. "Well, kid," Dabi stepped up next to him, breaking the spell. "You ready?" After a moment of hesitation, Izuku nodded. Dabi smiled and ruffled his hair. "You're gonna do great, kid. Don't worry, Izuku." Himiken squeezed his hand. "I'm gonna be right here with you the whole time." Izuku didn't realize how tense he had been until he felt himself relax. He finally looked ahead, across the plaza, at the group of students gathered near the entrance. With them were 13, Eraserhead, and All Might. Izuku grinned, running his tongue over his teeth. He couldn't wait to make him bleed. "Surrender, villains," All Might's voice boomed across the plaza. "You have no chance of winning," Shigaraki grinned. "Oh, I wouldn't say that." His voice, rasping and high-pitched, was the exact opposite of All Might's, and yet it still managed to encompass the area, chilling the air around them. After all, only noobs walk into a boss fight unprepared. Kurogiri disappeared in a flash of dark mist, and reappeared behind the hero students. Izuku's attention was finally drawn away from the symbol of peace, and he caught sight of Kacchan right as the blonde was sucked into a portal. He felt a flash of disappointment at the thought that he wouldn't get to confront his old friend, but perked up almost immediately because Kacchan would make his way back to the plaza eventually. It wasn't like Shigaraki had picked the finest villains for this attack. Quantity over quality, Izuku supposed. Eraserhead ordered 13 to protect the remaining students, not that it would do any good, Izuku thought gleefully, and followed All Might into the fray. "Don't hurt Eraserhead too badly," Izuku growled, grip tightening on his knife. "He's one of the good ones." The responses of the people who heard him, Himiken, Dabi, Shigaraki, and some of the villains varied from nods to scoffs. But he knew that Himiken, Dabi, and Shigaraki would listen, and that was all that mattered. Dabi immediately went for All Might, who had bypassed the small fry and went straight for Shigaraki. The Nomu stepped in before he could get there, though, and Dabi sent a burst of flame that All Might just barely dodged. With the symbol of peace occupied with those two, Eraserhead was struggling against the grunts. He wasn't used to long, drawn-out fights, Izuku knew. His quirk was better suited for ambushes. His strategy was to surprise his opponent and defeat them before he had to blink. But with enemies on all sides, he wouldn't be able to employ his usual tactics. He was doing well, Izuku could see that. But the intervals between blinks kept growing shorter and shorter. 23 seconds. Eraserhead had defeated almost half of the grunts. 20. 5 grunts left. 24. Eraserhead bashed the last 2 grunts' heads together and turned his attention to Shigaraki. 17. Izuku's eyes shone with delight as he intercepted the hero. Eraserhead just barely avoided his knife, leaping backward with a scowl. Eraserhead, Izuku beamed, not that his opponent could see. I can't believe I'm finally getting to meet you. You're one of my favorite heroes. How old are you, kid? Izuku giggled as he ducked under the capture weapon. About the same age as your students. I actually know one of them. Isn't that cool? What a small world. Is that what this is, then? Eraserhead hissed as Izuku finally managed to slash his arm. Taking revenge on your peers for the way you were treated? Kinda. He jumped away from an end of the capture weapon that had been going for his legs, but ended up with his right arm trapped instead. Growling in frustration, he managed to cut it away right as Eraserhead swept his legs out from under him. He landed on his back, head cracking against the pavement. My turn. Izuku grinned at the red blur that jumped between himself and Eraserhead. Took you long enough, 𝗵𝗃𝗻. Sorry, Izuku, 𝗵𝗃𝗻 chirped. You looked like you were having so much fun. I didn't want to interrupt. While Izuku took the time to regain his bearings, 𝗵𝗃𝗻 engaged Eraserhead. The following fight looked more like a dance to Izuku, with 𝗵𝗃𝗻's knives flashing in the air and Eraserhead's scarves twirling around them like ribbons. You good, kid? Dabi called, drawing Izuku's attention away from the fight. I'm okay, he called back, just taking a breather. Don't take too long. Don't want the other villains to think you. Dabi, look out. Dabi turned a second too late. All Might had taken advantage of his distraction and backhanded him in the chest, sending Dabi flying towards the lake. Izuku was up and running before he even hit the water. He passed a trio of kids who were hiding behind some bushes, but paid them no mind as he jumped into the water. He managed to grab hold of Dabi right as he started sinking, and began hauling them both back to shore. I do know how to swim, you know that, right? Dabi coughed as Izuku pulled him out of the water. Right. But can you swim with broken ribs? Izuku retorted. There's no way you survived a hit like that without some damage. Who are you people? Oh, right. Hero students. Izuku glared at the purple-haired kid that had spoken. You're either deaf or an idiot. The kid smirked and Izuku's mind went blank. Knock your friend out, the kid ordered. Izuku felt his body moving on its own, and Dabi's eyes widened in surprise before Izuku slammed his head against the concrete. Izuku hoped he hadn't given him a concussion, but doubted he was that lucky. Now go help Eraserhead. Izuku's legs moved, and he found himself running towards Eraserhead and 𝗵𝗃𝗻. 𝗵𝗃𝗻 turned, eyes lighting up. Izuku, there you are, she cut off as Izuku swiped at her, dodging quickly to the side. Izuku, what's wrong? Why are you? Izuku lunged at her again, hating himself as he did it. He tried to stop himself, tried to make his body stop moving, but it felt like he was watching himself through a screen. He wanted to yell, wanted to scream and shout and stop, but his body wouldn't listen to him. Eraserhead seemed to realize what was going on and went to help All Might, letting Izuku take over in his part of the dance. 𝗵𝗃𝗻 kept trying to get at him, but Izuku would block her every time. She growled in frustration. What did they do to you? She demanded, eyes like yellow fire. What did they do? Who is it? Who's making you do this? For the first time in his life, Izuku couldn't cry. He wanted to, how he wanted to, so 𝗵𝗃𝗻 could see how much he didn't want to be doing this. But the tears wouldn't fall. Stop it, Izuku, she shouted, slashing viciously at his arm. Stop it, stop it, stop it. You're mine. Not theirs, mine. You belong to me. Finally, she landed a kick on his head, and Izuku fell. 𝗵𝗃𝗻 went down with him, flipping him on his back and straddling his hips. She grabbed his wrists and pinned them above his head. Izuku felt tears running down his face and smiled. He was crying. 𝗵𝗃𝗻's eyes softened immediately, and she let go of his hands, moving to wipe the tears away. There you are, Angel. I'm sorry. Izuku shifted so he was sitting up, 𝗵𝗃𝗻 in his lap, and hugged her. I'm so sorry, 𝗵𝗃𝗻. I didn't want to. I swear I didn't want to. It's okay, Angel, I believe you. She squeezed him back. Now come on, let's make them pay. There's a kid with fluffy purple hair, Izuku said as 𝗵𝗃𝗻 helped him up. Don't talk to him. I haven't figured out how exactly his quirk works, but I'm positive it's verbally triggered. Got it, 𝗵𝗃𝗻 nodded, eyes dark. The sound of an explosion, coupled with a familiar shout, drew Izuku's attention. He grinned. Kacchan had entered the battlefield. Katsuki's day was going horribly, and he was fucking pissed. First, those dumbass extras wouldn't leave him alone on the bus. Then, the field trip had been interrupted by some stupid-ass wannabe villains who thought they could take on All Might. The ones he'd encountered so far had been weak as hell. But since there were so many of them, it had taken him longer than he wanted to finish them off. He'd already figured out that 𝗵𝘃𝗃𝗃's weakness, so now he just needed to get to the plaza and take him down. Easy as fucking pie. Shitty Hair was following him like a lost puppy. But Katsuki ignored him in favor of launching himself at the 𝗵𝘃𝗃𝗃. Move a single muscle, he growled. Make a single portal, and I will blow your fucking face off. You hear me? A bit villainous for a future hero, wouldn't you say? Katsuki just grinned. It gets the fucking job done, doesn't it? Whoa, good job, Bakugo. Shitty Hair had finally caught up. I never would have thought of that. Yeah, 'cause you're just a damn extra, Katsuki retorted. Now get out of the way and go join the other extras. No way, bro, Shitty Hair grinned. If you can help, then so can I. A ragged scream tore their attention away from each other. The Nomu had Aizawa-sensei's arm in a crushing grip, likely shattering it in multiple places. All Might punched it, and it tossed Sensei away. He landed next to the fountain, head cracking on the edge, and collapsed in an unmoving heap. You want to help? Katsuki barked. Grab Sensei and go join the other extras. Right, I'll keep him safe. Shitty Hair rushed off, grin replaced with a determined fire in his eyes. I don't think so. One of the villains appeared out of nowhere, swiping at Shitty Hair. Caught off guard, he wasn't able to harden himself in time, and the knife left a deep cut on his arm. The villain bounced backward with a giggle. Sorry, Kacchan, but I'm gonna need you to back off. She dodged away from a punch Shitty Hair threw and took advantage of his momentum to spin behind him and deliver a kick to his back. Shitty Hair stumbled but didn't fall. There was a noise behind Bakugo. He turned just in time to see a boot coming towards his head. It hit his nose with a sharp crack, but somehow he managed to keep his hold on the 𝗵𝘃𝗃𝗃. He lifted a hand and set off a large explosion, but it only grazed his opponent, who dodged easily, like it was something he'd done hundreds of times before. Not gonna get me that easily, he laughed. Come on, Kacchan, you can do better than that, Katsuki froze. The villain laughed, eyes bright. Oh, don't tell me you just figured it out. I thought you were smarter than that, Kacchan. Deku? Deku's eyes hardened. I told you not to call me that. Katsuki growled. The hell do you think you're doing? Isn't it obvious? Deku tilted his head in a very un-Deku-like way. I thought we made our intentions very clear. We're here to kill All Might. What the hell? You think you can take down the #1 hero? You must be even more of an idiot than I thought. Quicker than he had ever seen Deku move, Deku swiped the blade across Katsuki's face, leaving a cut on the same cheek as the last time they had seen each other. Katsuki once again found himself with a blade under his throat, Deku's eyes blazing with wrathful green fire. You're lucky I'm patient, he whispered. You're lucky I have more self-restraint than you do. Otherwise, I would kill you right here and now. The knife pressed a little harder against his throat, but didn't draw blood. Or maybe it isn't luck. I'm sure death would be far more appealing than what I'm planning for you. You know, he giggled. It's kinda funny. He paused, then leaped back a millisecond before a wall of ice separated them. Katsuki whipped his head around and locked eyes with Icy Hot, who nodded and turned his attention to All Might's fight with some ugly as fuck monster thing. The monster's right side was completely encased in ice, and Katsuki smirked, but the smirk faded as the monster just ripped the limbs off and regrew them in a matter of seconds. The hell was this thing? All Might shouted something that Katsuki couldn't make out and began launching a rapid series of punches, all too fast to see. Come on, I just want to see a little blood. Just one small cut. No way, psycho. Katsuki remembered the girl villain, the one wearing a matching outfit with Deku in her fight with Shitty Hair. They were still going at it, the villain's eyes lit with a somehow familiar manic light, while Shitty Hair bared his teeth. He'd hardened practically his entire body now, and seemed about to keel over with exhaustion. Shitty Hair, Katsuki barked. Down. It took 2 seconds for Shitty Hair to process and comply. By the time he did, Katsuki's arm was already raised, and once his classmate was out of the way, he let loose one of his biggest explosions yet. The vampire bitch yelped and jumped out of the way, clothes singed and smoking. Shitty Hair scrambled behind Katsuki, letting go of his quirk and dropping to the ground. Katsuki launched another, smaller, explosion, but it got the job done. The girl narrowed her eyes and ran off. Izuku cuddled with 𝗵𝘃𝗃𝗃 on the couch, both still cold from their time encased in ice. Should have known the son of Endeavor would have no problem dealing with those common thugs, Izuku scowled. But he was in the storm zone. How did he manage to find his way to the plaza from there? He is the son of the number 2 hero, 𝗵𝗃 reasoned. He's probably super smart. Stupid, stupid, stupid. Izuku hit the back of his head against the couch. We should have stationed more villains against him. Or put him in another zone. Or, hush, Izuchin, 𝗵𝗃 soothed him. Your plan was amazing. None of this was your fault. Izuchin, there you are. Sorry, 𝗵𝗃. I had some trouble getting past that stupid ice wall. I had him. I was so close. Aw, I'm sorry, Angel. She hugged him. You'll have more chances later, though, right? Yeah, he sighed as they pulled away. I guess so. Come on, let's. Ice covered both of them from the neck down. The sudden drop in temperature sent a shock through Izuku's system, and it took longer than he would have liked to realize what had happened. Stupid fucking. Dabi woke up soon after they had retreated, albeit with a splitting headache. He waved off all of Izuku's attempts to apologize, saying it wasn't his fault, and he shouldn't feel bad. Not that it did much to assuage Izuku's guilt, but he stopped apologizing verbally, and instead tried to make Dabi as comfortable as possible. He most definitely had a concussion, so Izuku and 𝗵𝗃 took turns watching and waking him. Izuku made some ramen that Dabi barely ate and 𝗵𝗃 finished off. When the last of the effects were waning and Dabi was able to sit up without almost puking, he demanded they tell him everything that happened after he was incapacitated. 𝗵𝗃 got up to the point where they had been frozen in ice. Then Izuku took over. The Nomu had been defeated. All Might had launched it into the freaking sun. Izuku swore he saw a little sparkle where it had disappeared. Team Rocket's blasting off again, he thought with a deranged giggle, then wondered if that made 𝗵𝗃 and him Jesse and James. Or maybe that would be Kurogiri and Shigaraki. He shook off the musings with a scowl. Either way, they had just lost their greatest weapon, meaning they were completely and utterly screwed. Izuku could really feel the cold setting in now, shivering so much he half hoped he'd vibrate right out of the ice. Looking over at 𝗵𝗃, he could see she didn't look any better than he did. He could only hope they would be able to get free before hypothermia began to set in. Muffled yelling could be heard down the hall, making Izuku flinch. Shigaraki had flown into a rage as soon as they had gotten back. Shamefully, Izuku was happy he was too injured to really do much damage. Otherwise, he doubted he and 𝗵𝗃 would have made it out completely unscathed. Not to mention the hero student being kept there. If Shigaraki was able to walk, Izuku didn't think the poor girl would survive. They'd have to let her free before their boss regained too much movement. Izuchin, 𝗵𝗃 squeezed his arm, startling him out of his thoughts. He sent her a tired, but thankful smile and continued. Are you okay, 𝗵𝗃? She nodded, though Izuku could see she was shivering as much as he was. Don't worry, Izuchin, 𝗵𝗃 reassured. We're gonna be fine. It took about 20 to 30 minutes to develop hypothermia while submerged in ice-cold water. Izuku didn't know how that would translate to being trapped in a block of ice, but he doubted the statistics were any better. Not to mention frostbite which, while not as serious, wouldn't take as long to set in. Izuku really missed Dabi. His quirk would have been really useful right about now. He strained his fingers, and, though they didn't move a single millimeter, imagined he could feel 𝗵𝗃's hand next to his. The kid who trapped you too, Dabi interrupted. You said his name was Todoroki? 𝗵𝗃 nodded. He was kinda cute, to be honest. Not as cute as Izuku, obviously, and he never smiled. He just looked really serious and kinda sad. Izuku hummed in agreement. He only ever used ice, but I noticed that it always came from his right side. Since half of his hair is red, I'm positive that he can use fire on his left side. If so, using it would have greatly increased his advantage, so why didn't he? He's the son of Endeavor, Dabi said after a prolonged silence. With someone like that as a father, it's not much of a surprise. Guess not, Izuku murmured, and stored that comment in a growing list of observations about Dabi. All Might wasn't moving. He was standing completely still, grinning that stupid smile, and acting like he was invincible. But he wasn't. Especially not then. Izuku was willing to bet his entire life savings, which, admittedly, wasn't much, that he was one little movement away from deflating like a popped balloon. All it would take was one little push, and he would be vulnerable enough that the world could finally be rid of him. But Izuku couldn't move. He was so close, and it would be so easy. But Izuku couldn't freaking move, so he just had to watch as All Might stood there grinning, just like he had the day he'd chewed up Izuku's dreams and spit them out like 2-week-old leftovers. Shigaraki, he hissed, teeth chattering. Shigaraki, now. Shigaraki grinned and launched himself forward. This was it. He just had to touch him, and it would be over. All Might would be a shot cracked through the air. Shigaraki cried out and clutched his arm, but didn't stop. Another shot. Shigaraki fell to the ground. Apologies, Shigaraki Tamura, Kurogiri murmured. But we need to leave. Inkai Black appeared under Himiko and Izuku and swallowed them whole. We were so close, Izuku hissed. All that work, all that planning, for nothing. Himiko stood and pulled him into a hug, resting her chin on the top of his head. This wasn't a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. You'll get another chance. Yeah, kid, Dabi rubbed his back. Don't let this get you down. All Might'll be even weaker after this, won't he? So it should be even easier to take him down. Yeah, Izuku whispered, eyes slowly widening. Yeah, you're right. He pushed himself past his limit, so it probably decreased by a lot. We just need a way to trap him again. He was really focused on the students, so maybe if we used hostages to split his attention. He scrambled off the bed and grabbed the notebook he'd left lying on Dabi's nightstand. It was time to start planning their next move.